into the NFL draft, releasing a social post today. He was on Good Morning America. He is going to be highly scrutinized and picked apart as the number one pick in the draft. But, man, he seems like such a sweet kid. So I'll be pulling for him. Of course, if you're a Raider fan, be excited to potentially have him under center. So we'll do some NFL on the show today. We will do some college football on the show today, as we are often want to do, as it became official, as we thought it might, that the college football playoff will remain a 12-team field in 2026. The College Football Playoff Management Committee, what the hell is that? That's a new thing. They announced that on Friday. The reports are the Big Ten and the SEC could not come to an agreement about what to do in the interim. They'll continue to talk about what's down the line. And as we've discussed after the schedule release in the Big 12 this week, that is not good news if you're a conference fan. And I am not. I never have been, because these conferences ultimately change all the time. But if you're a fan of the Big 12, I think you prepare for another year where one team is going to get in. And if we're honest, that's not great news for BYU or Utah. Texas Tech fans, you might as well start booking hotels in Arlington for December the 4th. That schedule is a joke. And so Tech is probably going to cruise to the Big 12 championship game. They're probably going to win it, and they're probably going to go. And my guess is BYU and Utah would probably be left out again. But, of course, it is January. To pontificate on possibilities of the fall college football season is probably an exercise in futility. Utah Jazz continue to play some entertaining basketball, albeit on the wrong side of the win-loss column. The San Antonio Spurs were in town last night. Yusuf Nurkic messed around again and got a triple-double, his second in a row. And he's had one triple-double in his entire career. So Will Hardy's unlocked Yusuf Nurkic, the playmaker. It's been pretty odd. Ace Bailey with a career high, some really good ace minutes last night. San Antonio's good, and Victor Wembanyama is horrifying. Every time you watch him, it's like that is the future of the NBA. So we'll do a little pro basketball on the show today. In addition to all the pro and college football storylines, RSL is in Portugal for their preseason camp and training. They played a match yesterday. They've got 2 more matches over the course of, I think, 10 more days there. There's a rumor that a midfielder is on its way to RSL. I know nothing about him because, in my free time, I'm not smashing Dutch soccer tape, but we will talk some RSL on the program today. Get you ready for the start of soccer season, which is just a few weeks. So good guest list on this Friday afternoon. Speaking of RSL, we'll welcome in Jason Kreis, the president of soccer operations. Will he have an announcement to make? My hope is yes. My gut tells me maybe not. But we'll ask him about the offseason. We'll ask him about the email that was sent out for feedback by the community that indicates they're considering a rebrand, changing the name of the team. So we'll see what Jason has to say about that. Sam Bruckhouse, Sumer Sports. Stay tuned for that. We'll get you ready for the championship games in the NFL. We'll see where Sam is leaning and, get you ready for a big weekend in pro football. We'll talk some coaching carousel and all the other storylines in the world of football with Sam Bruckhouse. Paul Pugmire, a little PGA. The PGA has returned. A little golf action on a Friday afternoon. And then if you are curious about anything pertaining to the world of college basketball, we have, in my opinion, the smartest college basketball analyst maybe in the country, as Ken Pomeroy, kenpom.com. Ken will stop by. That is like a daily check for me to see about the landscape of the world of college basketball, both in the Big 12 and elsewhere. So we're going to do some college hoops today with Ken Pomeroy. BYU, Utah, coming up on Saturday. A little rivalry game action down in Provo. So we'll see what Ken has to say about that. Jason Kreis, Sam Bruckhouse, Paul Pugmire, Ken Pomeroy, me, Spence Checketts. Hello, how are you? All of you, the great listeners. And our Dutch soccer expert producing the show today, Porter Larson. Hello, young man, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Do you think we're going to get an announcement from Jason about an official player acquisition for RSL?
I don't know that we'll get an official announcement, but sources indicate that RSL is making a move on as you mentioned, a midfielder out of the homeland, if you will.
Is that the homeland?
The
Netherlands?
Descendants.
Okay,
Descendants
really? You've got
of
bloodlines over there.
Yeah.
Have you ever done 23andMe or whatever the hell they call that?
I've got my whole tree kind of figured out, like all the way back to like 900 or so.
Do you? Oh, wait. You're kind of into this, aren't you?
A little bit. It's interesting to me.
So I have I think every family that has LDS ties has like one aunt or somebody that does all the genealogy. Mm-hmm. One of my aunts does all of it. And so based off of her work, I'm familiar with where But are you that person for your family?
A little bit.
Wow.
A little bit.
Okay.
And I will say, even though I'm not like all into AI and the tech stuff, it's helped find a little bit more info. Because my grandmothers went through like scrapbooks and article clippings and like everything they could find. I can like set something to alert me when new stuff comes up. So I've got a whole spreadsheet of my entire lineage dating way back.
Wait, are you telling me you can ask ChatGPT like where you're from?
Don't ask ChatGPT.
I'm going to do this right now. Where am I from?
That sounds like you're just giving info to the tech overlords.
All right, let's see what ChatGPT. Look, if ChatGPT can do genealogy, they can't. They're asking for more information.
The church can, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. That's where we get all of it. And then, once a year we gather around for a 1 hour like family reunion fireside where she gives us all the details. And after that, I'm good for a while. Don't need to dig in anymore. I think I'm familiar with where I'm from, and
That's fair.
I'm okay with it.
That's fair.
Grievance today on the Sean O'Connell show that I refused to drive past 33rd South.
I'm with Sean on that one.
No. Sean wasn't giving the grievance. He agrees. He lives up here by the Capitol. This was a texter that believes I'm being a snob because I refused to go south of 33rd.
I mean,
Porter,
self-proclaimed SLC snob.
Everything south of 33rd is Utah County. You didn't know this?
Like Juab?
Mill Creek,
Nephi?
Mill Creek is American Fork to me. Cottonwood Heights is Lehigh. Like I'm good right here. I don't need to go anywhere else.
That's fine. And for you, that's fine. I'll be the show's like rural Utah southern liaison.
Yeah, like
shout out to our friends in Milford, in Delta.
Sandy is Fillmore.
Panguitch.
I mean, Draper is Beaver. Like I don't, it's all the same to me.
Those are my people down there.
Well, I'm sure they're great people. This is not a personal thing. Hey, for anybody that thinks it's a personal attack, let's calm down on a Friday. I love everyone. That's the motto of this show is Jackie Moon ELE. Everybody love everybody. We know that.
You just like to stick around home.
It takes me 8 minutes to get to the studio. It takes me 2 minutes to get to the grocery store. Where do I need to go?
It's fair.
Okay.
A lot of space out there.
A lot of space out there. No,
Good
I enjoy
star
traveling. I enjoy going to the airport, but the airport's in Salt Lake too. I don't need to drive anywhere, that's not in Salt Lake. Love you all. Want you to listen to it. And by the way, a special shout out to my people in Harriman. My people in Harriman. Okay, they're my people.
That is somewhere I haven't really been much.
Dude, I'll tell you what. We went on a remote at a Smith's out there. More people showed up to say hello. It was so nice. Than they do the Smiths in 9th and 9th. So if you're in Harriman, you are my people today.
I'm with you on that.
All right.
Shout out our friend Isaac Asiata. No longer Harriman man. Former officer Asiata.
He's up north now, right? He took a job with Weaver. Good for Big Isaac.
Leading his own room.
Love it. All right. Jason Christ, our first guest, right out of the gates on a Friday afternoon. But before Jay stops by, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now for our opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 with Prize Picks.
Good news, kids. You're in a spot where you can make a little cheddar coming up over the weekend. If you've not downloaded the Prize Picks app today, you should do that first. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Their max discount for Championship Sunday in the world of pro football is Sam Darnold needs to pass for 1 yard. If Sam passes for 1 yard, you win. Now, you got to combine that with just one other pick, and you'll see that up on the interface. And you can win up to 2,000 times your cash with our friends at Prize Picks. So download that app and use the promo code ESPN700. All right. I don't think it's surprising, and I don't think it's a massive piece of news, because the decision makers and power brokers in college football can't seem to count to 20 with their shoes on. So I was expecting this, and I think it's only going to be for 1 year, but the college football playoff will remain a 12-team field coming up in 2026. There is something called the CFP's Management Committee, which I learned today. This decision gives the CFP and the conference commissioners additional time to consider the playoffs expansion to a possible 16 or 24-team format in the future. Move all sides, as far as the discussion at this point, could not agree upon the highest point of contention existing, of course, between the Big Ten and the SEC for the immediate direction of the playoff. As soon as those two conferences come to a conclusion about what they want, that is what we're going to get. And I know that doesn't land great around here. We're in Big 12 country with Utah and BYU. But that's really what we're dealing with. I mean, the executive director of the CFP, as Rich Clark said, quote, after ongoing discussions about the 12-team playoff format, the decision was made to continue with the current structure. This will give the management committee additional time to review the 12-team format so they can better assess the need for potential change. While they all agree the current format has brought more excitement to college football, which, by the way, I agree with, and has given more schools a real shot in the postseason, and another year of evaluation will be helpful. So Greg Sankey, who's the commissioner of the SEC, has been very front-facing in public about his preference for a 16-team model. Tony Petitti, who is potentially the most powerful figure in college football right now, he is the Big Ten commissioner, indicated the Big Ten would agree if the SEC agrees to committing to a 24-team field after 3 years. So the Big Ten's preference was, all right, we're going to go to 16 this year, and then the agreement has to be signed, sealed, and delivered that in 3 years we're moving to a 24-team field. And that's where the SEC pushed back. So Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are the two guys that have to come to the table here. I think most people, at least that I've heard and read, are supporting a 16-team field. I will just continue, as I have for years, point towards the FCS model of 24 teams. There's a reason why they've had it for years, and they haven't tinkered with it for years, just because it works. I think it's the perfect amount of teams. I think you add some more television shows for your TV partners, so just some more content to put on for your TV partners, because they have a massive say in this, inventory for them to sell. And when it comes to what we've heard from the Big 12 and the ACC, I hate to say it, it doesn't really matter. They're not really in a position where they're going to have any say here. Now, the downside to this, and look, we're sitting here in basically almost late January. I'm just basing off what the College Football Playoff Committee has told us, basically not even making it a secret, that pretty early on they've indicated that if you are in the Big 12 and you want to come to our party, you have to go win your conference. And with Texas Tech, that is a cakewalk schedule. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. Their 4 hardest games, and I'm not even sure how hard those games are all at home, okay? They avoid Utah. They avoid BYU. Their non-con is a joke. Like, if I'm a Texas Tech fan, I am booking hotel rooms in Arlington already for December 4th. And so if you're BYU or Utah, that's the team you have to look at. Now, of course, they're going to play each other on November the 7th here in Salt Lake. But this announcement today, unfortunately, to me, indicates the reality for the Big 12 is probably another one-bid league in March of 2024. And this is important. The CFP and ESPN agreed to a 6-year, $7.8 billion contract that ensures the network will remain the sole media rights holders to the event until 2032. And during the contract negotiations, the 10 FBS conferences and Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua signed a memorandum of understanding that gave the Big Ten and the SEC the bulk of control over the playoffs' future format. And that is why this decision is basically made by Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti and the SEC and the Big Ten. And it always goes back to money. You follow the money. It lands with a TV partner, ESPN. They're the partners for those two conferences. They want you to watch their TV show. And that's where the power is, unfortunately, right now in college football. We'll get back to this. We have Sam Bruckhouse stopping by, but we'll catch our first break of a Friday show and bring in Jason Christ coming up next on ESPN 700. Wait, UB40 has one song. UB40 in the history of their band only recorded a single song. It's the Red Wine song.
Come on now.
Do you have
That's
UB40?
That's a UB40 discography disrespect there.
Do you have UB40 knowledge?
Rat in the Kitchen.
All right.
Here I Am.
Okay. Well, I just
Can't Help Falling in Love. That's a good one.
In my mind, they have one song. RSL is in Portugal right now. The Atlantic Cup kids, get familiar. President of Soccer Operations, Jason Kreis, is our guest on a Friday. Happy Friday, Jay. How are you?
Thank you. Happy Friday. Good to be on with you.
Do you mean that, or are you being facetious?
No, I mean that. Genuinely mean that. You know that I mean what I say and say what I mean all the time.
Yeah, but when I hear the tone, I've known you long enough to know that you feel like you're obligated to do it. But that's fine, Jason. How's Portugal, bud?
Portugal is rainy and wet and windy, and the weather has not been great. But some good things happening here with the team.
Very nice, very nice. And before we get to that, and, of course, you'll announce what you can and hold off with what you're not allowed to talk about, all that fun stuff. The Miller Sports and Entertainment Group sent out an email and a survey for the community to look at and participate in, which I did. The one thing that stood out is the potential changing of the name of Real Salt Lake and rebranding the club. And this has not been met too kindly in circles. So just wondering what sort of insight you can share there, Jason.
Yeah, I don't think there's much insight to share, Spence. I think it's just the new ownership group wanting to understand what it is that our fans and our community and our most loyal people would like to see. So I think it's more just a questioning process than it is really any sort of action. So I'm certain that these types of evaluations, these types of processes are important, and I hope that the fans feel valued and that their opinion will matter.
Now, just to follow up, I mean, because people are genuinely curious, and maybe this is not your wheelhouse because you're in charge of soccer, and so if I need to ask the question of somebody else, I'm certainly fine doing that, but do you know how seriously this is being considered?
No, as I said, it's really not my wheelhouse. I do know just from being in and around it enough that, like I said, I think it's important to this ownership group that they have a firm understanding of what it is that our fans' values and what does our community want. I think pretty clear in the past, and I think I've been really clear just in the past 6 months or so that we want to be a genuine reflection of our community. We want to be a genuine reflection of our fan base. We would love for our fans come to our games, look out at the product on the field and say, that's a perfect reflection of my values as well. And that creates a sense of belonging, and that's what we're after.
So, Jay, the season, the season for all intents and purposes is here. You guys are training preseason style. Your first match is really less than a month away now, and the first home match is on the 28th of next month against Seattle. And there are a lot of RSL fans very curious about additions to the roster. Of course, this might surprise you or not. But in my free time, I'm not smashing Dutch soccer tape, so I'm not really familiar with this midfielder who is rumored to be on his way. I feel pretty confident saying the last name is Spearings. That's about it. He's 29. When you look at his pedigree, he's played for some big-time clubs. He plays, I believe, most recently for a club that's in the Blitzer umbrella. And according to multiple sources, he is on his way to play for you at Real Salt Lake. Can you shed some light here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've done a lot of work in this offseason reviewing players and looking for the right fits. One of the reasons why we moved Brian Ojeda is that we felt like he was too similar to the other central midfield players that we have. And so Stein is a player that if we get the deal done, and I do think it's very close, we think he offers us something different in the center of the midfield and would be a good combination with other players in the center midfield like Emeka, like Pablo Ruiz, like Noel Caliskin, to give us just something a little different, a little more control. So hopefully that deal will be done here in the next 24 to 48 hours. 24 to 48 hours.
And I always like to ask you this just as a refresher and a reminder. This MLS and the soccer ecosystem, it's much different than an acquisition done domestically where a player in the NBA is moving from Salt Lake to Cleveland or something. So when it comes to, unwinding all the elements here, just kind of take us through the process of the boxes that have to be checked before things like this actually get across the line.
Well, I mean, obviously the first one is, we typically will look at data first, see how the data measures up. That gives us a pretty long list. From there, we go to video checks. From video checks, we narrow that down to a really quite short list. But then we get to the coaches, people like myself involved. When we get that down to 3 to 5 candidates, then we look through that and make sure that that's all good. The next important piece is to understand what the background and what the character of the player looks like and what the motivation is. That requires Zoom calls, as it were, in our day and age. Back when I was the coach, I flew to countries to have conversations with players, but now it's typically done by Zoom calls, and then we need to have conversations with former teammates, former coaches, about what type of player we're adding. So all of those boxes need to be checked before we start to negotiate with clubs and negotiate with the players, so that we can meet their financial obligations. After we get done with that, then we need work visas and all of the other stuff that goes into what can be a very difficult immigration process to get our players signed and able legally to play in our country.
So when it comes to let's walk through. I think this is a good exercise for RSL fans. The what you have at your disposal to add talent, whether it's general allocation money. I think it's 2 designated player spots, and ultimately, there's the GAM and the TAM, kids. So that's when it comes to the way that we do this, targeted allocation money, general allocation money, a couple of designated player spots. Let's go over what resources, Jay, you have at your disposal to go move forward and make additions to this roster, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it all starts with the salary budget, right? So there's a certain number of players that will fit into just a regular salary budget that all of the teams have. And then, as you said, then there's targeted allocation money, which can typically run you from a player that all of his compensation together. So that's transfer fee plus his salary is typically going to be between $1 million and $2 million for those players. Anybody that's above that, now you're talking about a designated player or a U22 initiative player. The current model that RSL is utilizing right now and will probably continue to utilize for 2026 consists of 2 designated players and up to 4 U22 initiative players. And essentially those players, there's a set salary budget charge for them that goes against the cap, and the rest of it is down to whether ownership wants to give you that discretionary budget to use. So yeah, that's a quick and dirty, I think, recap or summary of our salary cap system.
Do you have a number from ownership as far as what your budget looks like? I mean, when it comes to the way teams spend on talent now, it's much different than when you were winning MLS Cup in 2009. And, I don't think anybody will ever expect a team that plays in Salt Lake or Utah to be the highest spending team in either the NBA or Major League Soccer. But is there a specific number you guys have been given from ownership, like this is what you have to spend this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a really good process in place right now between ownership, myself, Kurt, Tony, and coaching staff. We've got a really good communication line set up, and the budget was pretty clearly outlined to us what essentially Kurt and the recruitment group have to spend on the team this year. That's discretionary, right? That's above and beyond the salary cap. So yes, there's I think a really good understanding of what that budget should look like for 26 and beyond.
Are you happy with that amount? Do you feel like the amount of money ownership has allocated to you is enough to make the additions to take this club to the next level?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. And I believe with the budget that they've set forth, that we will continue to be a team that consistently competes for championships. And I think we should be able to take a step forward from where we have been in the last few years.
So we're hoping to hear official news about this young man that is a Dutch central midfielder. Spearings is his last name, over the next 24 hours or so. So when it says central midfielder, is that just like essentially go get him because you guys moved on from Ojeda type?
Yeah, I mean, the plan was essentially to look for a different type of central midfield player. We've identified this player. He was with Brondby, so it's a little bit of an easier transaction, although it's still not easy with all the hoops that we have to jump through. So, yeah, as I said, we believe that we've reached agreement on all fronts, and we believe that we should have all the documents signed and ready to go in the next 24 to 48 hours. I think I could say more confidently than I have before in the past. I think there's going to be several signings right behind him within what I would say should be a week, 10 days max.
Several signings within a week, 10-day max. So let me just follow up. Do you have a specific number that you feel confident in giving us, like these amount of players will be signed over the next week to 10 days? And then what sort of positions on the field are we talking about?
I would not give a specific number. Maybe I could give you a little bit of a sarcastic answer here. Maybe I'll choose not to.
No, go ahead, Jay. Go ahead. It's Friday. We're having fun.
Between 1 and 10.
Okay. All right. How about between 3 and 5?
I think that's pretty fair as well, Spence. Well done.
Okay. Is that
what was the other question?
No. Is just okay. So between 3 and 5, is that including this midfielder who we're hoping to get across the line, or is that in addition to?
I would say including.
Okay, so what you're saying on the show today is prior to the start of the season, there will be 5 new players signed for RSL.
That is not what I said.
What you're saying on the show today is prior to the start of the season, there will be 4 new players signed for RSL.
Let's move on to the next question, shall we?
Yes. What positions will these 4 or 5 new players play when we see the lineup slide?
I don't think this should be a massive mystery. With moving Vera out, with moving Ojeda out, I think you have to look at their positions and say we don't expect to stand pat there. I think it's also been pretty clear that one of our main objectives going into the off season and one of the biggest areas for improvement was to answer the question about how we're going to create more and score more goals. And so we are looking to add attacking minded players.
Okay. All right. There we go. Well, that's probably as much as I can grab. I'm doing the best I can here. So we'll see what it looks like come start of the season. Let me ask you, I was catching some of the highlights online. Dom Marksuk scored a pretty impressive goal, in your first preseason game over in Portugal. And, I've talked to you about Dom in the past where he's had moments, really bright moments where you're like, that kid has got something. And then, and this is not, something that's exclusive to Dom, as a professional athlete, things happen and form goes away. But, I have not written him off at all. I just wonder what sort of place he has in the planning moving forward for this season.
Yeah, I think he is sort of your prototypical sophomore slump player would be how I would describe it. I think there was also some things going on in his life outside of soccer that was extremely challenging for him in the last 12 months. Because we all felt like after the first half of the season when he joined us in the summer of 24, that he was a high potential young player. And then last year he just had I'd call it a sophomore slump. A little dip in his performances, a little dip in his effort, a little dip in his confidence. And we felt that, by sending him to Cincinnati, there was a potential that he could play as a wing back in their back 5 system, that he might do well there and might gain some confidence and potentially was going to play more minutes there than he would for us. So we sent him there. He did have got some minutes, got some game minutes with a very good team. And the hope is that we can rebuild him back to where we thought his career was heading in that first 6 months. So it is all there in front of him and the opportunity is there.
One more thing. Now that you've made it official that 5 new players will be signed prior to the start of the season, will 2 of the 5 players signed be designated players?
Well, Spence, as it currently sits, we have one DP on our roster with Diego Gonçalves, and I think it's fair to say that one of the players that we will add should be a designated player, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough. One of the things that we discussed when I was able to sit down with you for our television hit and the meeting we had out there was the formation change. And I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more and then have you kind of just take the space to talk about what you hope that looks like. And as you go about the process of making acquisitions, how are you kind of analyzing the way they would fit into the way that you guys want to play with this new tactical adjustment?
I think probably the easiest place to start would just be to talk about, last season. And again, as we analyzed why it was that we weren't creating the high number of goal chances that we were the year before, the answer comes down to two things. One, first and foremost, and the easiest answer is we needed to increase the talent level of the players that are out there. So we are addressing that this offseason, hopefully gonna get that right. And then the second was I think we were suffering a little bit from a system that worked so well for us in 2024, actually the first half of 2024, because we had an elite wide midfield player in Andres Gomez, who was very, very good in 1v1 situations and coming inside and contributing to and scoring goals from those spaces. And then we continued on with it in 2025 and didn't really have a player that replaced him effectively. And then what we learned through the season is that what we were asking of our left back, the job that we were asking of him was too much, physically just too much to be effective in the attacking final third of the field, as well as to be an effective defender in the back third of the field in a wide space. And so the decision has been made that we will go to a more balanced formation in an effort to get higher numbers of players in the attacking final phase of the game for us, both on the right and on the left side. So this year we're looking to play with 3 center backs, 2 holding midfielders, 2 wing backs, and then we're looking at 2 different scenarios where we play with 1 attacking midfielder under 2 strikers or 2 attacking midfielders under 1 striker. And that's why I think it'll be nice that we can have some variability there.
Am I seeing, Jay, that RSL is playing the club that Sperians was with in a few days over in Portugal? Am I seeing that correctly?
You are seeing that correctly. That's on Monday.
So is he there in Portugal with you, with RSL?
He is here in Portugal.
Is he?
Yes.
What if I saw a picture of him wearing a jersey? What jersey would he be wearing?
Probably would not have one on.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Yet.
Come on. All right.
Give us 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
And then we'll get a jersey on him.
Okay. I just did not know that his old club was there to play you until literally right now. So I'm learning this in real time. When it comes to a preseason, and we talked about this when I was out there at Harriman at the facility. There are a couple of ways to look at it, and I hear coaches and you, when you were a coach, say the preference is to have the roster that you're going to go through the season with you during preseason. So for the people out there, Jay, if the criticism sounded like this, what takes so long as far as the last couple of windows where all these rumors, this is happening, that is happening, and it didn't, and then you bring in a couple of older like MLS guys like Johnny Russell and such, and then the second window where you were able to get some things across the line, it just took a lot longer than I think most people would prefer. What's your reaction to that, and are you frustrated that these things aren't more expedited?
I think, this will take me back to the press conference when I was announced as the president of soccer operations. It's a similar question. And when I answer it this way, and that I think that we have to look within, we have to take a good look in the mirror and ask ourselves a couple of questions. Do we have the right infrastructure in our organization to make these very critical and very expensive, they're becoming very, very expensive decisions? And number 2, do we have the right process? And I just think that we need to improve. And truth be known, we only added a head of recruitment with RSL. He only officially started working for us in the middle of December. And so we want to make sure that we have those right resources. We have the right people in place. We have the right processes in place, so that we don't continue to make some what I think have been not so great decisions in the last several transfer windows. And the same thing can be said about the Royals. The Royals now have a head of recruitment, and we'll be adding a scout this year, and we will be adding data analysis positions over both clubs this year to help us make better decisions on the recruitment front, because they will continue to be absolutely critical for us, and we will need to be one of the best recruiters in the league if we are going to be successful, because as you already correctly identified, we aren't going to be the team that's going to go out there and spend the most money in an effort to win, as many other teams in our league do.
Lucas Engel, I forgot to ask you about him because he actually has been announced. Okay, so maybe I buried the lead a little bit. What should we know about this new player that you guys were able to get across the line a few days back?
Yeah, Lucas is a player I would say, of all the players that played in this last game, I thought he was quite good. And he's a player that's interesting because he can play left center back in a back three, or he can play left wing back or left full back in a back four. So he's quite he can play many positions. So I think it's been a really good addition. He's another player that's mid to upper, starting to get to his upper 20s, and is a very experienced player. He's seen a lot of places and been a lot of places. So he should add just some calm. That's what I really saw yesterday in the game. Is there's just a calmness about him, which we've probably lacked in the past couple of years.
Moving back to this, and I think it's a wise way to approach this when it comes to a long game vision and a brick by brick process to make sure the foundation is in place. Fans just watch games and cheer for players, and so that's what people are most curious about, which is why I asked you about that. For the most part. But Dave Tenney, you brought in as the club's senior director of player health and performance, and in addition to Dave, can you educate us on some of these other people that you brought in around you to support you in your role as director or president of soccer?
Yeah, I mean, so far, Dave is the first addition that will work over all the clubs in his role. And again, we've gone through a process of trying to determine what are the things that we can try to be elite at in the league. And I'll say it again, we aren't going to be the team that's going to go spend the most money and just going to go out there and recruit the most elite players in the world to play for our club. So then we have to ask the next question: how are we going to win? How are we going to realistically give ourselves a chance to consistently compete for championships? And one of the areas that we believe we can do that is to be elite in the health and performance side of things. What do we surround our players with to give them the best chance to be healthy and performing at their absolute best? And so we've taken the direction that we really want to outfit that department the right way, and so that starts by hiring Dave Tenney. On the Royal side, we're adding people like assistant sport S&C coaches, which they didn't have before. We're adding sports scientists. On the RSL side, we also added an assistant S&C, which we didn't have in prior years. We already have a sports scientist, and we're just going to continue to take a real good look in that space to make good decisions about how many people need to be in those departments to become elite in that area and to become one of the best clubs in the country in that space, because we think it can help us win, but we also think that can help us to recruit players in the future.
So you reference, and we talk about this. You're never going to be the club that spends the most money in all of MLS. It's not going to be you. So when I have the MLS salary data by club in front of me, there are 30 teams in the league. You guys last year were 20th. So it's not like you're last, right? It's not like, when you look at some of the names that are out there, and you and I talked about this, you can't just spend money to spend money. And shout out to our guy Garth, but we have a cautionary tale with Atlanta, of course, who spent a ton of money, and it didn't turn out to be the case that was the right acquisition, even though big checks were written. Is there an area that you would like to live in? 20th out of 30 teams, would you feel better if you were closer to the top, or where do you think that area is that you'll exist in moving forward?
And I think, to ask the question, where would we like to be? I think anybody that works for a club in my role or Kurt's role is going to say, well, we'd like to be at the top.
Sure.
but we understand that's not realistic. And I also would firmly tell you that I believe really strongly that we don't have to be in the top, third or quartile in order to compete for championships. I do not. And I think there's enough cases this past season with the likes of Philadelphia and Vancouver that were in and around our spend that were both obviously competing for championships. And we're really close to those, with Philadelphia winning the Supporters Shield and Vancouver going all the way to the final. So do I think that we need to spend more? Absolutely. And we've been really clear with ownership about that I did not think that the talent level in RSL last year gave us a real chance to win anything. And so we have to increase that. And where that number falls out, I don't know that I feel like it's that important. I just know that we've got to put more into our player signings than we were last year.
All right, Jay. Well, thanks for the time. I know you're busy over in Portugal. Congratulations on the 5 new signings and the 2 new DPs. Really excited to see how they fit in.
Can you give at least a disclaimer when I get off that I didn't say either one of those? Could you do that for me, Spence?
Jason did not say on this radio show that RSL is signing 5 new players and 2 DPs. He only alluded to the possibility. How about that?
All right.
Safe travels, bud. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Jason Kreis, president of soccer for Real Salt Lake and the Utah Royals. I tried. So it sounds like this midfielder is on. He's there, actually. I had no idea that RSL is actually playing the club that he was with. It is a Blitzer club. Porter, have you tried to pronounce this young man's first name yet? I have no idea what it is.
I haven't, but
last name is Spearings. I think we're safe saying that.
Yeah, I do just know MLS requires him to be on the homeland to do a physical, and then should be good.
There you go. But you can go listen to the interview in its entirety. Jason said multiple signings, in addition to this midfielder, should be expected within the next week or 10 days. Are you skeptical? I get it. I don't know. It's taking a long time to get this stuff done. The season starts in less than a month. So hopefully reinforcements on the way, and then we'll kind of look at what that is. He referenced Diogo Gonçalves, who is the DP on the roster. I did not ask Jason a follow-up about that. My understanding is he is not part of the future plans, but I'll let the club kind of announce that whenever they want to do that. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up, we go from soccer to football. Sam Bruckhouse stops by. All right, I got conference championship weekend coming up in the NFL on Sunday. We got a doubleheader. Don't forget, we are your home of the, well, quite frankly, the biggest and best football games on both the college and the pro level here in the market. We're going to start things off with the Patriots and the Broncos, then move over to the Rams and the Seahawks. Our next guest has rapidly become one of our favorites to stop by to talk football, and he joins us live from the Shrine Bowl. Sam Bruckhouse, look at you. How's everything going?
I'm live in Dallas, and I think that right now it's colder in Dallas than it is out there on the West Coast. So we have ice warnings, we have snow warnings down here in the South, but football never stops, Spence.
No, it doesn't. And we have our lowest snowfall since 1933 in Salt Lake. It's wild. It's been warm here for a while.
Yeah, look, now that I live in New York, I'm actually avoiding the snow, the brunt of it. But I just got out of sunny L.A., and man, if you told me that I was coming back home to the South and I was going to get frozen out, I may have thought twice. But the Shrine Bowl practices have been awesome. A high level of competition, wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah, tell us about this experience for our listeners that are not familiar. The East-West Shrine Bowl. What are you looking for? And tell us about how you're kind of analyzing these young men trying to play in the NFL.
Yeah, so there's two major all-star games in which the top prospects in the NFL draft come in and compete at a high level. The things that we've found have been particularly useful are those one-on-one matchup competitions. They're really exciting, really competitive, and Sumer Sports is partnering with the Shrine Bowl in Dallas to bring the latest data insights. We have film, we have folks bringing in data, and we're really getting a second look, a deeper look at some of these guys.
You mind if I ask you about some of our local kids, if anything has stood out? I mean, Lander Barton is there, Utah linebacker, and Dallin Bentley is there as well. A couple of Utes. Have you been able to get your eyes on them at all?
Yeah, they've been looking good. It's always interesting in the first day because there's a lot of fumbled snaps, trying to get the snap count correct. I went ahead and talked to Lander about 30 minutes ago, and he told me that, he was trying to get used to the playbook, the way that he was going to do it, given that there's not walkthroughs and you're not with a team or a coach that you can expect to be for long, was he was just sitting down and drawing the plays out over and over and over again. A unique element I learned about Utah in particular is that they typically don't do a lot of what's called spot dropping, which is kind of like playing zone defense in basketball a little bit, where you are up for a space instead of trying to match up. He was trying to adjust to that, and in particular, adjust to some of the language going on in these NFL circles. It's a little bit more universal. At Utah, they're doing some more specific stuff to take advantage of the talent down there at Utah. So he said he was adjusting to that, but today he was focused on physicality, and boy, did he bring it. He's a big-bodied guy. We really like how he looks in terms of the data, and both from our scouts. And so as a result, I'm really excited to see how the 6'3", prototype-looking linebacker progresses through the week. I think he's going to bring that physicality. His plan was to continue trying to work on tackling. He hasn't played in a month or two, really hasn't seen a lot of the game other than getting prepped for the combine and some of these draft events. And he said he was ready to strap on the pads, make some big hits as the week goes on.
And as you saw, he's the nicest kid, and he comes from really, really good stock, of course. And that's not just his brothers; it's his sisters, his parents. I mean, when it comes to just character, you're not going to find anything there. He's a good kid and a safe bet. You think he's an NFL player?
Yeah, I think he is. And we sat down and broke down a couple of his plays with our scheme expert, Sean Syed. And I got to say, the processing and understanding of scheme is certainly there. And I think player interviews are really the massive thing that is going on at the Shrine Bowl. I'm standing right outside of one of the group rooms now where some of these players are interviewing with NFL executives and scouts. And I think that's really going to come across in the way that he talks. Character is a key element, particularly to pick up at the Shrine Bowl. I bet he's going to do well in that phase.
So when it comes to like Caleb Lomu, Spencer Fano, and Spencer for sure, I mean, probably a guaranteed top 10 pick, but I've read a lot of people really high on Caleb Lomu. When it comes to the prospects that more or less have like a first-round promise, none of these players are participating, right?
Not in this game. There are some in the first round that are participating in the Senior Bowl, particularly Reuben Bain out of Miami, announced this week that he's going to come in and that he wants to dominate the Senior Bowl, despite probably being the second or third pick. We haven't really seen that since back in the Pete Carroll days, where Pete Carroll would show up with multiple of his players and they just try to go dominate the bowl. In terms of Spencer Fano, though, we actually did a deep dive on him on our up-and-coming YouTube series, The Evaluation, which you can, tune in on YouTube here shortly on. But we did a deep dive in on him, and, man, the end-of-the-season metrics on his run blocking are absolutely incredible. He's one of the top run blockers in this draft, going up to the 99th percentile. He's truly excellent at moving around and being a point-of-attack run blocker, and I think that's really going to make the difference for him in this draft.
Yeah, we've got some good news around here that Devin Dampier is coming back, and so is Burt Ficklin and Wayshawn Parker. But, Sam, for our listeners that maybe don't fully grasp what that offensive line was able to do a year ago, the stat that cracked me up more than anything is that Utah led the country in yards per carry before contact, and it was like almost 4 yards, which is just hilarious. Like, how difficult is it to replace what Utah is losing, essentially rebuilding that offensive line?
No, and moreover, in particular with Fano, we have a stat that actually tries to marry how we evaluate the player with the result on the play. So we're looking at the artificial intelligence tenth by second evaluation and trying to delineate the yards before contact for the running back to that. And whenever Spencer Fano had a good play, that meant a lot for the yards before contact. So it's going to be really, really difficult to replace him. The good news is that Utah, despite this crazy era of college football, has been able to do that with homegrown players. And moreover, in the passing game, Devin Dampier doesn't take sacks. That's just not what he does. And so you're not going to have those negative plays in the passing game moving forward because of Devin Dampier's sack avoidance. And when you can do that, you can really start to lean on teams, run the ball. I'm going to be interested in what the scheme continues to look like. But all that being said, Devin Dampier probably going to give a young offensive line a lead up because he's just not going to take those sacks. Sacks are a quarterback stat, and as a result, maybe that's going to lead to some gains in the run game as well.
Well, one question about a BYU player. I'm seeing that Chase Roberts is there. Chase has great measurables and, had a really, really, really good career at BYU. How do you analyze Chase Roberts as an NFL prospect?
Yeah, I think it's so funny how these Shrine Bowls really work out because early on, you get a sense, particularly playing in the Big 12. I've been talking to some of these scouts, and unfortunately, I don't know why they're starting to view it as kind of a second-tier conference. But when you really break it down, you got Texas Tech, you got Utah, you got BYU, you got a lot of talent out there. So I'm still very interested to see how we're going to pick up in our data how he performs against some of this other top talent at the Shrine Bowl. But that's really what we're going to look into is those BYU players, those Utah players, some of the other players, how they look against some of the Georgia players, the LSU players, and so forth and so on.
One more question, then we'll bounce out of this because I don't see Jaron Kump on the rosters, but I heard that Jaron Kump was going to be at the Shrine game. Have you seen him?
He has not came across my desk just yet, but I will definitely get y'all an update next week if we pick up some on him in the data.
All good. Let's move on because I am juiced for these games coming up. I mean, the NFL playoffs are always awesome. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just single and bored, but this year they've been especially entertaining for me.
Yeah.
Patriots, Broncos, let's kind of knock these out one at a time. Of course, I feel bad for my Denver Bronco fans around here as they're on the precipice of their first Super Bowl in a number of years, and they lose their starting quarterback. Do you think they can make it interesting, or does this feel like the Patriots are going to roll into Mile High and roll out with a big win?
Well, here's the interesting part. Earlier on in the season, we were talking about backup quarterbacks and Phoenix quarterbacks, guys like Sam Darnold, and a name that came up when we brought on quarterback guru Jordan Palmer was Jarrett Stidham. And so when we got an idea that the Denver Broncos had Bo Nix go down injured and Jarrett Stidham's name came up, it was piqued my interest because we had heard him earlier in the year on the Sumer Sports Show, which you can find wherever podcasts are found, or on YouTube. Go check out our Phoenix quarterback episode if you want to get Jordan Palmer's thoughts on Stidham. So I actually think that with regards to Davis Webb and Sean Payton's offense, that I think they probably don't think this is as big of a drop-off as we do. Now, that being said, there's two things that Jared Stidham is going to have to recreate that is absolutely essential to the Broncos' offensive success. That is the sack avoidance of Bo Nix. The man never gets sacked. It's basically the anchor of that offense and what they build off, the idea that there's never going to be a deep negative play, and then also being able to create with his legs. We saw him be able to do that a little bit with the Buffalo Bills, and in particular, in the first drive, there were several quarterback design runs. I don't know if Sean Payton will pull that out of the bag for Jarrett Stidham, but I do think when it comes to the passing game, they can get a lot of the production, particularly given that they like to get their offensive linemen, Mike McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles, Quinn Miners, out on the edge in the screen game. Sean Payton's the godfather of the screen game in the National Football League. And so I think that this could be a Sean Payton masterclass. And frankly, I don't know how big they view the drop-off between Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham, given that I think they just may believe in him quite a bit.
So New England is getting 3 in the hook on the road. New England is a 3.5-point favorite, which is probably closer than most people thought based off the quarterback shuffling. But what do you make of it? How do you see it going down? Who do you think walks out of that game with a win?
Well, yeah, I think the reason that is because of the uncertainty when you lose a starting quarterback. Look, even the worst starting quarterback or an average starting quarterback is still worth about 3 points to the spread. So the idea here is that, Bo Nix, if he was just an average quarterback, and I'd say probably this year, particularly given his ability to create with his legs and avoid sacks, he's probably what we would call like a 4.5, 5 points over an average starter. So I think that probably tilts in the Broncos' favor about 1.5 points in terms of the spread if we're being conservative, should they have Bo Nix. That being said, you look over there at the other side. The Patriots are having a defensive resurgence right now, particularly given that they've got Milton Williams back on the inside. And on the other side, it's the number 1 ranked passing offense with what I think is the MVP in Drake May. So they are facing a tall task. That defense did kind of fall apart against Josh Allen. They really only won that game because they lost like 18 to 21 points sheerly off of fumbles, plus add in an interception that I didn't think was an interception, a pretty fluky game. So if that defense has a rough game, I think this could solidly go the Patriots' way.
So I was looking at the numbers. So the Rams and the Seahawks split their regular season meetings 1-1. But Week 16, when the Rams went up to Seattle, so for our listeners, the Rams are the number 1 scoring offense in pro football, and Seattle is the number 1 scoring defense in pro football. And Sam Darnold, according to what I read, is the only quarterback in the history of the NFL to throw for more than 400 yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 picks at that point in the season against the number 1 defense in the league. Now, Seattle won 38-37, but what can we learn digging into the 2 matchups the Rams and the Seahawks had as far as trying to analyze what could happen on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, so I'm going to be closely watching the personnel on offense and defense on both sides. I think that Mike Macdonald's going to do what he has always done, which he's going to try nickel out with Nick Emenwari at the big nickel position, and they're just going to beg the Los Angeles Rams offense to run on them. In particular, they're going to run a man set. You can track this play-by-play using our live charting at sumersports.com/live. You can check the personnel rates and you can check the defense personnel rates on the flip side. So I think we're going to see a lot of nickel defense, 5 defensive backs, including big nickel Nick Emenwari. And I think they're just going to beg him to run on them with their duo concepts. I think Mike Macdonald has discussed in the past at coaching clinics how to shut down duo. I think he's confident that his front can do it. And I think it's going to have to be a game that Matthew Stafford wins for the Rams. On the flip side, I want to know if the Rams are going to become a 13 personnel team again. They did get Terrence Ferguson back last week. They have a full deck at tight end. And throughout the year, they were really using 13 personnel to create explosive pass plays. They kind of stopped that in recent weeks with Devontae Adams coming back, but they did do it with Devontae Adams. I've been really questioning why they have gone back to an 11 personnel team. It really hurt them in the second half of the Bears game, allowed the Bears to get back into the game. When they started driving again, they pulled back 13 personnel. That happened in the Panthers game as well. I think that it's going to be a really interesting matchup between that offense and defense, particularly when it comes to the coaching and what they are deciding to do against one another.
So Seattle is getting 2 in the hook, 2.5-point favorite at home. I don't know, man. My advice to my listeners is always simply don't gamble. So for entertainment purposes only, how do you see it going down?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to Sam Darnold. As we've said for the better part of 2 years now, whether he was on the Vikings or the Seahawks, that offense has been anemic in recent weeks. And, yeah, sure, they went and blew out the 49ers, but they were heavily aided by special teams and an opportunistic defense as well. You look at what this offense did going down the stretch at the end of the year, and they really couldn't run the ball, and they really couldn't pass the ball either. And so I think they're going to face a Rams defense who is going to put 5 guys up front and beg you to beat them through the air. They've really struggled on the back half, however. The Rams have in recent weeks. We did see a pretty good week against the Bears, especially with Quentin Lake kind of returning to form after struggling with injury through most of the season. He's really an X factor in their defensive scheme, which likes to use 3 or 4 safeties at any given point in time. So I think this is going to be the Darnold game. If he is Cinderella and goes to the ball, I think the Seahawks end up winning. I think they are an extremely powerful team. But if he turns into the pumpkin we've seen him do before, it could be extremely questionable up at Lumen Field.
Let me go back to a comment that you made that caught my ear, but I wanted to have you finish your analysis of the game. Matt Stafford is not just your favorite to win the MVP. He's a pretty heavy favorite to win the MVP. So, but you referenced that you think Drake May should win that award. Help us understand why.
Yeah, so you look at what Matthew Stafford is doing right now. Absolutely incredible. Led the league in passing yards. And I think traditionally you look at passing yards as a statistic that will drive success in the NFL. Really, when you really deeply look at the correlations, however, between MVP voting, it's very rare for a person who does not lead the league in total expected points added, which is yards in context, really describing how a person affected a game in terms of points rather than in terms of just raw sheer yards. Now, the Rams won a lot of games, as did the Patriots, but Drake May leads the league in that statistic. Furthermore, you go look at our Sumer scores, which are evaluating the relationships between players every 10th of a second. Drake May was our top player, or our only certified All-Pro. And while Matt Stafford was still very good, he was a quality starter and a borderline blue-chip player, we do give a lot of credit to Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, who we had as one of the highest-graded players, period, in the history going back to 2016 at the wide receiver position. Frankly, he should be a lock for the Offensive Player of the Year, but it's going to go to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was very, very, very narrowly close behind him. But I think when you just break it down between the AI and the advanced analytics, I think Drake May showed a little bit more this season. That being said, they did play an easier strength of schedule, and if that's something you want to break it down on, you got to give the nod to Matthew Stafford playing in the NFC West, one of the hardest divisions in the league. But I think it kind of comes out in the wash, and I believe that Drake May showed a little bit more than Stafford, and he was also working with a little bit less than Stafford as well.
So when it comes to voting history, you guys over at Sumer do a really good job of digging into metrics that maybe a lot of voters ignore. You'd think Drake May should win the MVP. Do you think Drake May will win the MVP?
You know, I think Vegas knows a lot,
yeah.
And when it really comes down to it, I would be shocked if, we have a repeat of last year where Lamar Jackson was the first-team All-Pro and Josh Allen was the MVP. I think that was a very unique scenario between two players who were extremely close. I do think that in terms of the narrative, Matthew Stafford led a team that was in a very difficult division to really high rankings, both offensively and defensively, behind his passing yards. Also, it's Matt Stafford. He's a little bit older. It's a great narrative element. And so I think Matthew Stafford probably will. If I had a vote, I would have voted for Drake May.
So let me follow up about Stafford. And again, you can help me understand with the data stuff, because for me, I'm just watching football, and there are times I'm watching Matt Stafford. I'm like, he has things that very few players have that have ever played that position. Like some of the greatest throws I've ever seen in my entire life have come from Matt Stafford, and for years he was kind of in purgatory in Detroit. But I know you referenced that you're leaning Seattle, and I think most people are. If the Rams are able to get it done, and if he wins his second Super Bowl, there's a case to be made that this guy is creeping up to like top 10 range, historically speaking. Now, that's a lot of ifs, and we'll see if it actually happens. But When it comes to the way you analyze this stuff, just generally speaking, where do you think Matt Stafford exists in the hierarchy of NFL quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, first off, the 2 Super Bowls are extremely rare. You think of a guy like Eli Manning potentially making the Hall of Fame, despite not having, 75% of what Matt Stafford has had in terms of a career. So you definitely got to consider him there. Also, locking in the first-team All-Pro this year also does mean a lot for his probability of making the Hall of Fame as well. But the guy, number one, is one of the toughest players ever. That's off the sheets of paper. You can just tell. Going back to some of those crazy, NFL films, him basically popping something in his body and screaming like a lunatic and then leading a game-winning drive. We've seen that over and over and over again in his career. But I think, as you analyze it towards today's quarterbacks, he just doesn't run a lot. And so when it really comes down to it, as the years go on, I'm interested to see how people continue to evaluate him. I think with Drew Brees and Tom Brady, they obviously are still looked at favorably. And so I think as a result, Matt Stafford. One thing I do want to note, however, the reason why I give the Seahawks a nod is not because of the offense versus defense matchup or the defense versus offense matchup on the other side. It's because of special teams. Every single game, there's some type of embarrassment that happens for the Rams and special teams. It came up against against the Seahawks. Both times they fired their special teams coordinator after the Seahawks game. And there's something that every person should watch that is watching this game, and that is every time they kick the ball off, most recently they've just been kicking it out the back of the end zone. That is absolutely detrimental in today's NFL, and particularly the 2025-2026 season, because the ball comes out to the 35. That basically means you get 2 first downs, you're in field goal range. That's made a heck of a difference in both playoff games. It made a heck of a difference down the stretch. And so I think that a team like the Seahawks, which has Rashid Shaheed, who has had multiple big-time returns, they have an innovative punt scheme. They're doing interesting things on kickoff as well. You can't just lose 10, 15 yards a kickoff, particularly in a high-scoring game, and think you're just going to make it over one of the top teams. So I think special teams is actually going to be the difference in this game.
Let me move over to a couple of takeaways from what happened a week ago. And let's start with Broncos-Bills. And, of course, Sean McDermott loses his job after 9 very successful years. And, I just want you to unpack your thoughts on the controversies with the calls. Are you surprised the Bills have moved on? And then attendant to that, who do you think they'll land on to take that job, which is a hell of a job when you have that kid under quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, this is a head-scratching one. I think the reason that this may have occurred is off-the-field type stuff. It's office politics. You look at what his plan is to win on a yearly basis, and it's to have a good run offense to complement Josh Allen and keep him healthy through the playoffs. And it's to have a defense that can stop the pass, and they achieved that goal this year. Now, maybe they didn't necessarily achieve it against the Denver Broncos, but at the end of the day, you were a bad call away from making another conference championship game. And there's only so many people who can get a team to that point. This team has been built in his image, and perhaps that's the chagrin that they don't have the wide receivers, or perhaps they don't have the talent on defense. But I like a lot of those defensive players. You think of guys like Christian Benford, Gregory Rousseau, Terrell Edmonds, Matt Milano, who I think has regressed in late years, but that's an all-pro type guy. And it's very unique that they went away from a guy who they know is going to give them points over the spread in every single game, especially after a season where they pretty much dominated teams for most of the year, got a lot of signature wins, and basically lose to a team by almost sheer luck and a couple of fumbles. I mean, Sean McDermott's not controlling the fumbles, and I know people love to say that that's a coaching thing, but it's truly not. You look at fumbles season to season, it's really pretty variable, and especially against a team like the Broncos who plays with their hair on fire, sometimes bad things happen. So this was a head-scratching one for me. I would have kept Sean McDermott. I think he's going to get interviews, and at the end of the day, I guess we'll see why this occurred in later days. I don't really know what direction they're going to go now.
Who, if you're running the show, who do you land on? I mean, they've interviewed Brian Daboll, who loves Buffalo and had great years with Josh. I thought Mike McDaniels had taken the Chargers coordinator gig, but there are rumors that they're looking at him. Phillip Rivers even got an interview. Any thoughts on who you think they should go with to maximize Josh before he gets older?
Yeah, if you want to take the kind of more radical data analyst view on this, and I don't even subscribe to this as a former player, Maybe they're doing it to keep Joe Brady in-house. Joe Brady has taken head coaching jobs in the past, and that's a guy who has led extremely efficient offenses with Josh Allen and that offensive line for year after year after year, and has been able to do it in the playoffs against the best defenses. So there's always been this discussion of if you have a defensive-minded or CEO-style head coach in the NFL and you think you're going to lose your offense coordinator, maybe you pull the plug. But if they're interviewing Brian Daboll, I don't really necessarily know what the difference, if not the decrease, between Joe Brady and Daboll is. So I frankly don't know what direction they're going to go on this. When coaches are getting snapped up left and right, Mike McDaniel does make sense alongside that kind of idea to go with the play caller. But I think they're kind of in an interesting position where there's no clear front runner.
Before I say you lose, out of my own curiosity, every time I watch the Texans play, I feel bad for the other team. That defense is so nasty and physical, and DeMeco Ryans is a bright young coach. What has happened to C.J. Stroud? I mean, those conditions were tough, but this is not just in a vacuum. Like this young man, after coming out of college as a rookie, a lot of people's like, all right, well, he's next. This league he's going to have something to say about how this league is going to go down in the future. What's gone down there? And if you're the Texans, what do you do? Because you have a Super Bowl caliber defensive staff for sure.
Yeah, so let's delineate basically what happened on paper. His first year, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, wins the Rookie of the Year award. Second year, we go in, a second year with Bobby Slovic as the offense coordinator. Bobby Slovic was a very high rush rate over expected guy, meaning in passing situations he was typically running, and also they truly didn't believe in their offensive line, despite having Laramie Tunsil, who was a certified blue chip guy in our Sumer scores both this year and last year. And basically the offensive line falls apart. He has an extremely high sack rate. He's running around for his life. And they're running the ball on first and second down and getting nothing, and he's asked to convert on third and long quite a bit. So you see that sack rate come up to like 8%. He was one of the worst in the league. You move on to this year. In the aggregate, he actually had a pretty good year. He was top 10 in EPA per play amongst quarterbacks with over 250 or so dropbacks. And then also his sack rate also went down. It was about 5% rather than 8%. It was actually one of the better ones in the league. The question is, why does that offense still suck? And when you kind of look at it, you look at our Sumer scores, we thought the offensive line actually wasn't terrible this year. They bring in a new offense coordinator in Kaylee. I didn't think the plays were quite awful. They did have injuries in the wide receiver room, but they had invested a lot in the draft with Higgins and Noel. And kind of the fingers just point back to C.J. Stroud not being that good. And it particularly showed up in the playoffs when he was just not doing well when blitzed, despite the pressure rate not necessarily looking very similar to the blitz rate. So the blitz weren't even necessarily getting home. I do think he needs a reset a little bit. They're going to extend the fifth-year option almost certainly. So I do think he has another 2 years to figure it out. But when it really comes down to it, when you see some of those core leading metrics, such as sack rate or EPA per play, go up or down, or increase over the next year, you'd expect that the offense got better, and it just simply did not.
Yeah, it's wild to watch just how anemic it has looked at times. Sam, before I say you loose, where can people go find your work, bud?
Yeah, so go to sumersports.com/sumerlive on Sunday. We're going to have the live feed. It's a great second screen if you want detailed analytics. You want to be able to tell the story of the game. That's sumersports.com/live. You can find all the latest and freshest and freest data at that link.
Great stuff, bud. Have a great week. Enjoy the games. Be good, okay?
Yep, thank y'all so much.
Sam Brockhouse, Sumer Sports, ESPN 700, wants to send you to an advanced screening of Shelter, starring Jason Statham, happening Tuesday, the 27th of January at Megaplex Valley Mall. Text Shelter right now, 877-353-0700. We'll catch a quick break. We'll change gears. We're going to do a little golf coming up with Paul Pugmire. Keep it right here. It's that time of year, man. It's that time of year when I really start to get the itch. Have not swung a club in a few weeks. Haven't played 18 in, let's see, I did go to San Diego a couple months ago. But, Porter, this is the time of year where I make the drive home, see Bonneville, a tear comes to my eye, I'm getting the itch. I'm about ready for it.
It's time for that simulator action with our guy Tiger in the crew.
Indeed.
No, I feel you. I understand it. It's not as much of a golfer, but just want to get outside, tennis, hiking, golf a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you.
Our next guest has the itch year round, but he always finds a way to scratch it. What's the way you're getting your swings in these days, Paul Pugmire?
Oh, going to the sim at T box, and you got to go, man. Porter's right. It's hard. It's cold out there. Got to go to a sim.
And you prefer the one at T box? That's your favorite?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Let's start out with a little educate our community and me about certain things regarding the game of golf. If one is interested in upgrading equipment, the game has exploded, Paul, to the point where, I'll go out for an 18 on a weekend and you see dates, you see men, you see women, you see kids, you see friends. It is permeated through the ecosystem of our country in a way that a lot of people never thought possible. So I'm sure we have a lot of people that would like to get better, that would like to improve. And part of that is improving your equipment. Part of that is learning how to play the game. How would you tell people if they're just beginning to go about, improving a little bit with the game of golf?
A great question. I appreciate you asking it. First of all, play the game. That is to say, get the ball in the hole. It's not only tempting, it's very attractive to want to stand on the range and beat drivers. But that's not golf. Golf is hitting shots from different places in succession, one after another, and trying to get the ball in the hole. And so it's best to learn the game closer to the hole. Start with getting putts in the hole, then chips, and follow it with a putt. And then when you're on the range, mix it up. Hit different shots with different clubs at different targets, one after another. And work on getting the ball in the hole. That's the first idea is train your brain to do that. Secondly, golf course size, the length of the holes, it's built for adults who have experience in the game. And they what you want to do is make adjust the golf course by moving up to a front tee, or even teeing it up in the fairway, especially for kids and beginners to the game, so that you can experience what it's like to go driver 7-iron, driver wedge, and then you're around the green and you're either putting or you're chipping and you're putting, and so that the game is fun, so that you're getting fun scores rather than just going, say, playing a back tee and then going driver 3-wood, 3-wood, 3-wood. That's not golf. So don't be afraid to move up. And then secondly, you really hit on something dang important in the game. Playing with people you who are your friends and your family. That is the joy of the game. And make sure that you're making it a fun thing that you share with other people. It's go play.
As far as finding the right equipment or needing to upgrade, I mean, to our listener that has his grandpa's clubs in his garage from 1984, give a little advice here. What's the best way to go about that?
Yeah. It is a bit of a two-edged sword. I hate to tell people go spend a lot of money, I totally understand not wanting to do that right off the bat. The reality is that you need clubs that fit you. Think of it as shoes. Would you ever take your dad's shoes and cut the toes off and say, there, now they fit me? No. And golf clubs are the same. You need clubs that fit your body, fit the way you swing. Now, having said that, I recognize that spending that kind of money from the very start when you're still learning to swing doesn't make a lot of sense. So if you're getting some used clubs, getting some secondhand clubs, make sure that you get clubs with the highest amount of forgiveness possible. A perimeter weighted iron, a large driver measured in cc's. It's the size of the whole driver head. So that there's as much forgiveness as possible built into that. And then as you do advance in the game and as you become more committed to the game, you really need to get clubs that fit your body.
And the way to do that is go get fitted, right? I mean, look, I understand your point, but the fact of the matter is, it's like skiing. This is not a cheap hobby. The more and more you get into it, you're gonna spend money. That's why people literally refer to it as an addiction. And then you go back and you do a budget at the end of the year, and you say, "I spent what on golf this year?" At least I do. So, like, if you're gonna,
do you track it, Spencer?
I sit down once a year and I go over everything. I do a little self audit at the end of every year. And I will not say into this microphone what I spent on golf last year. I'm not going to say it. But when I do tally everything up, the past few years, I'm like, all right, man, it's better than heroin, Paul. Okay, so if it's an addiction, that's fine. I'll take golf. But look,
it's worth it, isn't it?
Well, the fact of the matter is, like, if you're going to get into it, if you're going to try to improve, if you're going to try to get better and play on fun golf courses, it ain't free. It just isn't. So, like, when you say you need clubs that fit you, do you recommend going and getting measured and fitted?
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of places that will do it. Uinta has they've got stores around the state and fitting going on in there. There's fitting available at some of the indoor simulators. Certainly, T-Box has that available. And a few of the golf courses have it available, but fitting really matters when you're serious about the game.
Do you go over your golf expenses, or do you just say, like, and I know it's a much bigger part of your life than mine, but is that something you track at all?
No, I'm better off not knowing.
Yeah. No, and that really and I don't do this for golf. I do this to track everything, to see, like, it's just a self audit. It's a recommendation from a finance guy that I listen to a lot, and so I can see where my money is going. And as I've gotten into this sport, certainly more of it goes to golf. But look, I am so in. I was saying I'm getting the itch. I have become slightly obsessed with it, if you can't tell, so I'm very excited to get back out there. When it comes to, let's move over here into this direction. I think a lot of people are intimidated by it, and I think it gives a lot of people tremendous anxiety, because there are very few things, even if you are really good at it, where in a moment you can look like you've never done it before at all. And in a moment you can absolutely embarrass yourself. And I think for a lot of people, Paul, that stuff is daunting. Like, what's your advice for beginners that start to play, think they're getting better, and suddenly really struggle with it and say, well, what's the point of doing this?
There's two things to remember right away, and I appreciate you asking the question, because it's a great question. First of all, nobody else is good.
Right.
And this idea that most people have, that everybody else out there is some kind of touring pro, the answer is no. The touring pros are on tour. The rest of us are playing because we love it, and we're scraping our way through it, And the second thing to know is, in addition to the other golfers not being as good as you think they are, they're also not watching you. They don't care that much about what you're doing. They do care that you keep pace. It's important to know how to keep pace so that you're not slowing anybody down. And sometimes a new player might need to pick up and just move to the next shot. Not a problem. I highly recommend it. But really, just understand that it's hard for everybody, and mostly they're worried about themselves.
If I added one piece, I want your reaction. If I said, please keep the pace going, please just play fast, what would you say to that?
No, 100%. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. That matters a zillion times more than playing well. You do that, and people say, "Oh, he or she's fun to play with. They're good to play with," because you're keeping pace. And if you're slowing them down, it doesn't matter what you're shooting. The reaction will be negative.
Yeah, that was my grandpa's thing. He loved the game. He played it almost daily for the final 40, 45 years of his life. And, he tried to get all of us into it. He was an Oak Ridge guy, Paul, so that was kind of his home track. Okay. And so it was fun to, learn a little bit going out with him. But that's what he would always say. He was like, look, whether you like this, whether you're getting better, whether you feel like you're struggling, keep it moving, okay? Like, if we're going to work on your swing, we're going to do it afterwards at the range. He hated slow play more than anyone.
Yeah, I like him already.
All right, there you go. For you beginning golfers out there, some tips from Paul Pugmire if you're getting into the game. Who the hell is Blades Brown? Let's start there. First of all, yeah. Awesome golf name, but who is this guy?
It is an awesome golf name. It's his mother's maiden name. His mother, Rhonda Blades, was a WNBA player. She scored the very first 3 in WNBA history.
Huh.
And her maiden name was Blades. So they just, they have this little infant baby, right? And they don't know he's going to be a great golfer. He's being raised in a basketball house. And they named him Blades because it was a family name. Turns out to be a pretty good fit, right? He is 18 years old. He is from Nashville, Tennessee. He was the top junior player in the world at age 16. At age 16, he had an amazing double. He was the low medalist in both the National Junior Am and the U.S. Amateur. As a 16-year-old, being the medalist so low in the stroke play portion of the U.S. Am, set the record for being the youngest player to do that. The guy whose record he broke was Bobby Jones, a record that stood for 103 years. So Blades is a phenom. He is a kid who forewent college and went straight from high school to declare pro status, and then went out and earned his way onto the Korn Ferry last year, and then played his way onto the PGA Tour. And today he just shot a 60 at the Nicholas course down in Palm Springs to jump up the leaderboard into a tie with Scotty Scheffler after 2 rounds of the Amex, the American Express down in Palm Springs. This kid is legit. He is the real thing, and he plays with great belief in himself, which you've got to do to go straight from high school to the pros.
Yeah, as you reference, I'm bringing it up because he had a hell of a round today. He went lower. Yeah. Well, it looks like Andrew Putnam had a 60 as well, but my goodness, a couple of 60s. Good.
Yeah, different course. They play 3 courses in the Amex,
okay.
And Putnam was on La Quinta, which is the most gettable of the courses traditionally. But look, 60, I don't care where you're shooting it. It means you're hitting great shots, but still 2 60s out there today, but Blades Brown played his way into a tie for the lead. Pretty impressive stuff. He did,
and as you referenced, he played himself into a tie with a young man by the name of, I believe it's Scotty Scheffler. I mean, come on, like he just continues to be that dude where if he shows up, he's the guy you got to beat, and that's just who he is now. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We've talked about this a little bit. Really, Scheffler will make us talk about it more. It's becoming more and more of a Tiger-esque conversation. Statistically, yes.
Paul?
But also,
wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I'm listening. Go ahead.
But also, in terms of when he shows up, you know he's going to be in contention. You know that you're playing it's the field against him. We're not quite there yet in the same way we were with Tiger, but it's going down that path. And what Scotty is doing is his percentage of wins versus tournaments played, percentage of top 3s, top 5s, top 10s versus tournaments played. That's where statistically you're getting into the Tiger comparisons that are becoming very legitimate.
You do know that you scolded me once when I had the gall to bring up that comp, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I know.
All right. Well, as long as we're on the same page now. I mean, look, it's not the data to me because every time you say, okay, Scheffler feels like this generation's Tiger, you go back and look at the Tiger run and you're like, that's like impossible. I mean, I get it. It to me, it's more the intangible feel that as the game has grown and just more talented golfers are out there, and I am genuinely curious and very excited to see what the PGA Tour looks like in like 20 years when all of these athletes are now golfing and all of these kids are now playing golf. Like, it just opens up the pool when it comes to how many really good players we're going to see with this generation of golfers, that they're just simply more of them.
Absolutely.
Like, who's going to rise to the top? Let me ask you this, though. When you compare what Scotty is doing to what Tiger did, the context of how many talented players there are now as opposed to then, does that come into play at all?
It does. The fields are deeper now. There's no question about it. And that holds true year over year over year over year. The field gets deeper. It gets stronger deeper every year. And that is an unmistakable pattern that is in the PGA Tour that will continue. The biggest difference right now between Tiger and Scotty is longevity. Tiger did it for round numbers, I'm going to say a decade. Okay, just dominance for 10 years. And that's just so hard to fathom when you really say it out loud. Scotty just hasn't had that number of years yet. We'll see if he continues going. He's keeping it going right now with his first start of this PGA Tour season. But Tiger remains the standard in that regard in terms of dominance. And there are others in other time periods. Obviously, players like Hogan and Nicklaus were dominant in their times as well. But Tiger's dominance numbers are really they are set apart. Scotty is starting to approach them, but has not yet had enough years to really stand peer side to side with Tiger. We'll see if that happens.
I'm laughing as I say this because Tony carded a couple of 68, so it's not like he's playing bad golf. But, when you look at where he is in relation to the field, he's tied for 63 with a couple of 68 so far. What do you make of the start to this tournament for our local boy, Tony Finau?
I'm so glad to see it. It is an upward trend from last week at the Sony in Honolulu. Last week he truly stumbled. But he's going out and, like you're saying, playing good golf. You lay down a 68 and chase it with a 68. That's good golf. Now, this particular tournament on these particular courses, it's a total birdie fest. And so, as you mentioned, he's T63. Because there are 3 courses that they're using, the cut won't come until tomorrow. But if it was a 2-day cut, Tony would be on the number at -8. Pretty staggering. We'll see how it plays out for him tomorrow, and then hopefully he gets to play on Sunday. But the main thing I see there is that he's trending in the right direction coming back from his surgery, and I'm really glad to see that. Not at all surprised, just really glad.
All right, before we find out what's on the show tomorrow, Brooks Koepka's first event will be the next event, which is the Farmers Insurance Open on January the 29th to February 1st. This is the Torrey Pines event, North and the South course. What are you expecting? I mean, it's such a mental game that I just have to wonder, and Brooks has always just been kind of a put blinders on and go hit it around and have the ball striking kind of rue the day, but as far as what you know about Brooks and his game, how does he translate to the Torrey Pines courses, and what are you expecting as he takes his place back on the tour next week at the Farmers Insurance Open?
Can't wait to see it. Torrey Pines is a big boy course, and it takes a big game to win there. You look at people who have won at Torrey, and they've all got big games. It's a really good fit, a really good place for him to start. We'll know more about how Koepka's feeling and how he's playing the following week when they go to Phoenix for the waste management. And the reason I say that is Koepka's record on that course is really good. He's won on that course. He's had a couple of high finishes there. And so we will know more about where his game stands after we see him in Phoenix. But there's every reason to believe that he will be fine, that he will compete well. He remains Brooks Koepka. The guy has, he's got a big game, and he's proved repeatedly that he can rise to a moment. I expect nothing to change.
All right, bud, before I say you loose, Utah Golf Radio coming up tomorrow. What's on the program?
We will be talking with Annie Fisher from the Utah PGA about their experience, the Utah PGA team experience down at the PGA Merchandise Show this last week. Always so many interesting things. We have this conversation with them each year. We're going to be talking with Spencer Wallace, the Assistant PGA Player of the Year, and recapping a pretty remarkable week that took place, weekend that took place last week down in Copper Rock, where we had the show down there last week for the qualifier that they are doing for the Epson Tour, the only tournament on the Epson Tour that does a qualifier to get in. And we'll be recapping all that.
Good stuff. Well, we're getting closer. I know a lot of people are still praying for snow, and I get it. But part of me is kind of like, well, at least the golf courses will be in good shape. But that's just me. All right, Paul, thanks for the time, man. Have a good weekend, okay?
Thanks.
All right, Paul Pugmire, Utah Golf Radio. Check it out. We've got the American Express tournament going on right now, La Quinta Country Club in La Quinta, California. And, of course, Scotty Scheffler is atop the leaderboard along with Blades Brown at 17 under par, Siwoo Kim, C.H. Kim, no relation. They are tied for second at 16 under. Matt McCarty at 15 under. Then there's Ricky Fowler. Look at that. Wyndham Clark. Good leaderboard, actually, as I'm looking at it. Harris English is up there. Russell Henley, Patrick Cantlay, Ben Griffin. A lot of big names. Tony Finau is 8 under par. He will be right on the cut line. We'll see if Tony's able to survive and play over the weekend. All right, speaking of the PGA Tour, time now for Uinta Golf PGA Tour update. You can get custom fitting at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf for the new Cobra Optim drivers. The new Cobra Optim is the first driver to optimize POI and MOI, experience straighter drives and more robust distance. Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Get there. All right. If you're a college basketball fan, you're about to get an hour of education. We usually wait until springtime, but it's great to have Ken Pomeroy join us coming up. We'll talk some BYU, some Utah State, Big 12, big picture college hoops. So keep it here on ESPN 700. We got Utah and BYU basketball coming up this weekend, coming up tomorrow down in Provo. BYU was up here not too long ago, and the Utes gave them a good battle, but ultimately BYU was able to win. BYU really good this year. It's the first year of Alex Jensen's task to rebuild Utah basketball. And we are getting closer and closer to March, which is when I'm able to spend time with my next guest more consistently, but thrilled to have the great Ken Pomeroy live in studio, even though it's only January. Ken, how are you, man?
Yeah, it's kind of a bonus, Spence. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's great. It's great. And, we're going to blink and the tournament's going to be here, but let's kind of jump around with some of the local teams. And let's start with the Utah Utes, year one under Alex Jensen. And this has more or less been a teardown and rebuild. Kiana Dawes returns. They did give BYU a good battle. They were able to get their first Big 12 win against TCU and almost beat K-State on the road. Of course, K-State, not a great team. But what sort of insight can you give us as far as who this team is right now and what are reasonable expectations the rest of the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a slog. I think the biggest compliment you can give the team is that they do have fight. Like, they're clearly able to push some of these good teams, not able to get wins. It's a bit of an awkward roster. You got Terrence Brown, who's just a really good scorer, one of the leading scorers in the country, scoring first point guard, and that's kind of what the offense revolves around and sort of has to, and really one other scoring threat in terms of Don McHenry really being a really nice shooter for them. But the offense overall has been the strength, even though personally I don't necessarily find it my cup of tea to watch on a daily basis. Terrence Brown, again, talented, but just the ball is in his hands an awful lot, when you watch the game. And then defensively has really been where the weakness is. They just don't have that kind of Big 12 elite size up front. They're implementing kind of the Alex Jensen system where they do pressure ball handlers and it's a low 3-point attempt defense, but funneling guys to the middle where there isn't much size has been an issue, and teams are just getting easy baskets against them quickly and too often, unfortunately.
Let's elaborate on the Alex Jensen system. Okay, so for our basketball fan listeners that are curious as to what Utah basketball could eventually look like when the talent is there in a way that it just isn't right now. Obviously, Al came up under Rick Majerus as a player, then as an assistant coach. He was G League Coach of the Year, spent a number of years as Quinn Snyder's lead assistant, 1 year with Will, and then went down to Dallas, of course, and coached with Jason Kidd and Luka Doncic. So he has had the education and preparation for this moment. When I say what is the Alex Jensen system, what comes to mind?
I think defensively, it's a little bit in the image of Rick Majerus, maybe Rick Majerus light, just in terms again of extending pressure, taking away 3-point attempts, trying to force teams to play in the half court more. Although again, he hasn't had a lot of success doing that this year. It's not a team that's going to aggressively go for offensive rebounds. Majerus was pretty famous about not going for offensive rebounds.
Yep.
AJ's not quite as extreme in that regard, but still, you see the hints of that in what they do. So, so that's really, I think he's probably more loyal to that, to the defensive side of things when it comes to, his college experience than maybe more to the NBA side of things when it comes to the offensive side, where he is more open to, taking 3-point shots and, being a little more willing to allow early shots in the shot clock. Stuff like that. It's just a really awkward roster right now because, like I said, there's really 2 scoring threats, and one of them is a score first point guard, and he's doing the most he can with what he has. But when you play against more sophisticated Big 12 defenses, and they know you have basically one guy that can score off the dribble, it does make you easier to defend.
Do you see any of Quinn in AJ? You see the effect there?
Yeah, to some extent. I don't know that it's overwhelming, but certainly the evolution from, you might say playing in a very rigid system as a player to a more free-flowing system, on the offensive end where he's, again, not interested in making, 5 to 10 passes and passing up open looks early in the shot clock. I think he's more open to the way the NBA has evolved where, you have to realize that, if you get an open shot in the first 5 to 8 seconds of the shot clock, that's probably better than what you're going to get if you don't take that shot. And so I think that's where perhaps there's a little bit of influence from his years with Quinn.
So you have Utah as your lowest-ranked Big 12 team by kind of a long shot, 114th in the country. Randomly, Maryland's right there too. Some good brands, historically speaking, are actually down as I'm looking at this, Marquette and such.
Yep.
So Bowling Green, Troy, Hofstra, Utah, 114th. Not great, Bob, as the kids say. Help us understand a little bit more as to why you kind of referenced the lack of size, and if you're going to funnel players into the paint and no one's there to block shots, that's going to be an issue. But and is there a silver lining as far as anything that they do well as a team?
Yeah, it's first of all, Utah's a tough job right now. On the men's basketball side, really tough job. And you just look at, really kind of the first year of Craig Smith. I mean, it's a similar tune we're playing here. You're behind the eight ball in terms of putting together a roster, and it's already a tough job. And so the recipe is going to be a lot of L's in that first season. And it remains to be seen what happens going forward. Like, there may be a lot of L's going forward. It's a really tough job, but certainly with a full academic year to think about constructing a roster for next year, you'd like to think things would improve as they did under Craig. Silver linings, I mean, like I said, there is fight. I mean, it's a little bit of a cliche, and I don't want to be Mr. Cliche here, but they do push like good teams. Like, they didn't get completely steamrolled by Arizona. Obviously, you mentioned the BYU game, and they gave BYU all they could handle. They pushed Texas Tech a bit. They beat TCU, who is a team fighting for a tournament bid, so certainly not a team that would lay down against Utah. Almost had the Kansas State game. So, I mean, if you're looking for silver linings, that's a silver lining, and it's the type of silver lining that really only applies to the first year of a head coach. And in year 3, if we're talking about, wow, this team has a lot of fight, AJ's going to be in trouble, because at that point, all you really care about are W's and L's.
Yeah, and look, the reality of this sport, just like college football, is if your economic model isn't what it needs to be, you have no prayer, you have no chance. And do you have any insight as far as the ability that Al has at his disposal to go out and get the talent he needs based off of the financial support he's getting? If he doesn't have that, he doesn't have a chance. I don't care how good you are as a coach.
Right, and I think obviously the resources, I don't think it's a secret. It pales in comparison certainly to BYU down the road, but to most of the Big 12. I mean, it's comparable to the Kansas States and the TCUs of the world. That could, you could say that at least. But yeah, it's a tough spot, because even if you are really good at identifying talent, you don't get 3 years necessarily to develop talent. It's not to say that everybody's going to transfer or whatever if they become good. Some guys do stay, but for the most part, if you don't develop that talent immediately, you're not going to see the benefits of it. So yeah, it really is a tough spot. But that said, they can definitely be better than 114th. Like, they can be a team that competes for the middle of the league, and that's ultimately what Craig Smith built. Craig Smith really just never quite got a break or two that he needed to, get an at-large bid. But I think that is the realistic level for the program, as a team that, with a break or two can get an at-large bid. This version of the squad is not at that level, but like I said, obviously, the administration came in late, and they won't have that excuse for next season.
Yeah, I'm sorry for chuckling, but better than 114th is a pretty low bar. So we can climb a little bit. By the way, do you know what Craig is up to? Did he get back in the game at all? Is he just hanging out and enjoying some time off? He's got a little cash in his bank account.
Yeah, I think he just took the year off. Okay. He seemed like a guy that would be good on TV, but he hasn't serviced in that area either. But you look back, looking back on what he did at Utah, like. It may not be as bad as people realize. Like I said, he was probably a break or two from getting an at-large bid in a really tough spot. So I hope Craig gets back into the game, because I really enjoyed watching his teams. And
Agreed.
He's a guy that's suited for maybe a head job at a level below the Big 12. I mean, he can go back and tear it up in the Horizon League or the Summit League if he gets the opportunity. So hopefully he gets that chance.
Let me ask you about Larry. I wasn't planning on doing this. I also really liked Larry Prskoviak, and I know there were some people that were really disappointed to see him let go. Like a lot of coaches since Rick left, there was some really, really good, and there was some not so good. But just generally speaking, what sort of job do you think Larry Prskoviak did here?
Yeah, I thought he did a great job as well. I mean, people, to some extent, you end up being a victim of your own success. And, the years he had, Pirtle and DeLon Wright, and then, Kuzma towards the end. I mean, that run was pretty special.
Yeah.
Those especially those two teams, Pirtle and DeLon Wright. Those were some really good years, and that stuff is extremely hard to sustain at this program. And obviously, once people saw that peak, and then he really could not duplicate that after that point, things became kind of stale. I mean, that's just how being a college basketball coach is not like being a radio host necessarily. It's like sustained success is not good enough. You have to sustain success and then build on that success. And if you don't do that, then naturally people get unhappy and you start looking for someone to replace them.
Was that a personal shot, Ken? Did you just take a shot at me? Is that what that was?
You have had sustained success.
But now I need to build upon it, though.
You do need to build upon it.
Okay,
if you were a basketball coach, you would need to build upon it.
Okay,
but
fair
as a radio
enough.
host, just keep doing what you're doing.
So just stay average the entire time?
Well, you're above average. Like Larry was above average. You were above average.
I'm just messing with you. So let's go back to Terrence and Don. One of the words you hear a lot with people that are covering basketball these days are like areas of redundancy, right? And they're both really good, dynamic ball in hand lead guard types. Do they play? Is there too much similarity there? What makes them different? I mean, they're really similar players, and they're both very capable offensively.
Yeah, they're somewhat similar. I mean, I do think Don's fine, like as an off-ball player. He's such a good shooter that he can fill that role extremely well. And so I think that combo works fine. They just need help, like they brought in Seydou Traore as another shooter from Iowa, and his track record was not obviously, but if you're familiar with Seydou Traore and his stats from his first 2 years, he was not a very good 3-point shooter, and he's been okay. He's been like passable as a perimeter shooter, but not enough to take enough of that pressure off of Terrence Brown. I mean, that's really been the issue in conference play where the defenses, I mean, even before conference play, defenses are just focused on him. It's really amazing what he's been able to do and how efficient he has been, despite the fact that he is like the centerpiece of any opposing scouting report.
Yeah.
But as I said, like a little difficult to watch as you get, late into games, and he's the guy that has to score for you. And, he just gets swallowed up sometimes by opposing defenses. He is good at drawing fouls, and he can kind of create offense still doing that. But beyond that, it's been a bit of a struggle.
Totally random question, because we only saw him for like 5 minutes. Do you know anything about this Lucas Langarita kid?
I don't know anything about Lucas Langarita.
Well, here's why I'm bringing it up. I didn't know a thing about him. You hear the information that he's coming over to play, and honestly, within 5 minutes, I'm like, wait, they have another player on the roster that actually can shoot it. He hit a three and it looked really good. He made 4 or 5 reads in like 5 minutes. I'm like, why isn't he playing more? Now, he's hurt, unfortunately, but you could tell even within a few minutes that Al's got something with this kid.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Al for getting creative with the roster management and finding this guy. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of coaches that have made some splashy news finding, midseason transfers, and almost across the board, those transfers have like disappointed in spectacular ways. Yeah. So obviously there is playing time available, and if Langarita is healthy and can play, he'll get that opportunity.
Let me ask you about Keanu Dawes, who's the only returner, and it was interesting because after they let Craig go, his name is escaping me. The interim coach that took over for Craig after he took off. Anyway, it's not important. Shout out. Hope you're doing well. He liked Keanu a little bit more than Craig did, and Keanu Dawes got some starts, started posting numbers, double-doubles, and was really showing his ability as a big-time rebounder. Are they getting enough from Keanu Dawes? He's 12 points. He's 9 boards. He's not even blocking a shot per game. So what do you make of the season we've seen from Keanu Dawes?
Yeah, I mean, it's been fine. Playing in, I think, a role that, like, suits him. Maybe there's some expectation he would, take on a bigger role this year. But given, it's the Terrence Brown show offensively, like, there just isn't as much of a role available for him in that sense. But, yeah, certainly, I mean, he's, an impactful rebounder, which is exactly what they need given their limited size. He's not a rim protector, and he's not much of a scorer, but he does have a little bit of a jump shot and can get to the free throw line. I mean, he's a nice third option. He's just like in the Big 12. It's, he's a type of guy that if you're going to have a winning record, he would be, your fourth or fifth option offensively, and he's like the clear number 3 right now.
Shout out to Josh Eilert, Coach Josh Eilert, who took over for Craig. My bad, Coach, if you're listening, and we know that you probably are. Let me ask you this. As far as the players that transferred into the program, are there any that stood out to you that you were expecting more from that we just, because I didn't know a rip about any of these guys. A lot of them came from just random spots. Were you expecting more from any of the pieces that we haven't talked about so far?
No, I can't say I was expecting more. I mean, I think you do, you hope that, like, some guy's surprise. You hope that the coaching staff, has a specific reason for bringing in guys who maybe don't have flashy statistics. I mean, I do think that's like the real edge you get now in terms of bringing in transfers is having more advanced numbers at your disposal to find the guys who outplay their basic numbers and may be overlooked by other coaching staffs. But I mean, I don't know how to say it, but like, I can't say I was like expecting any more than we've seen from some of these players. And like, certainly, I mean, not to only talk about Terrence Brown, but I mean, he came from a very low level program in Fairleigh Dickinson, and the game is actually translated surprisingly well. Like, he was a high usage, low efficiency guy there. And frankly, those guys don't succeed at higher levels, very often. When you go up a level, you tend to, see your role shrink and your efficiency increase. Well, his role hasn't shrank, and his efficiency has increased, pretty dramatically. So, I mean, if you want to give Alex Jensen and the coaching staff credit for that, be my guest. Like, that is like to me a pretty big surprise.
Last thing, we'll catch a break. And coming up next, I want to ask you, Big 12 Conference, is it the best conference in America? We'll do some BYU, and then we'll lean into some of the top-tier prospects as the Jazz are going to hold on to their asset, it looks like, coming up this year in the draft. Look, man, I know it's tough, but we are the flagship home of the Utes, so I'm trying to. Are you seeing any progress? I mean, are you seeing the team get better? They did get a Big 12 win. Terrence's three fell short of the buzzer against K-State. But are you seeing this thing move in the right direction at all?
Yeah, I think certainly you've seen improvement over the course of the season. Like, I was at that Weber State game, second game of the year, which they really should have lost. Don McHenry had a big three, I think, at the end of regulation to force overtime. They were really struggling early in the season, even though they were getting some wins. And then, they lost to Cal Poly, and that kind of exposed things. But since then, they've gotten into Big 12 play. Like I said, they've never been run off the court. So, they're out there and they're being competitive, and these are all like they have made progress. These are all fun cliches. But I do think, the BYU game was enjoyable. We'll see what happens tomorrow. That'll obviously be a bigger test going into hostile territory. But look, if they're in that BYU game with 5 minutes to go, there's no moral victories, but to me, that would be a moral victory. You could take some pride in the fact that they're going against one of the best 10 to 15 teams in the country and into their building, and after they've already given them a good game and still able to give them another good game, that would be a big step forward, I think. Yeah,
you referenced the Arizona game. I never thought they were really in that one, but they missed a lot of wide open threes against BYU, and then they could not get a board to save their lives down the stretch. So look, obviously BYU, both on paper and the data, a much better basketball team, but at least there's that, because this is going to be a long game for Al, and I hope they give him the patience that he needs. Ken Pomeroy live in studio coming up next. BYU Utah tomorrow, as we talked about. We'll preview that and takeaways from Kevin Young's season so far, and then jump around the Big 12 a little bit. Who does he like at the top of the NBA draft? Keep it here on ESPN 700. By far the dumbest habit. By far the dumbest habit after 20 years that I just smash an Uncrustable during a break and wait until the final 30 seconds before we come back. Ken, say something dynamite intelligent so I can get some water.
That's an incredible skill. I mean, to be able to wolf down Uncrustable?
Have you've never had an Uncrustable?
Never. I'm more of a Lunchables guy. No, I don't know.
Ken, you have never lived if you've never had an Uncrustable.
Like a Pop-Tart?
No, it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with no crust. It really fulfills the 8-year-old boy inside of me.
Okay.
Porter, come on, man. Our guys never had an Uncrustable. Our show is basically sponsored by Uncrustables.
This is true, but also pro Lunchables here.
Lunchables, there we go.
I don't have an anti-Lunchable take. You can like Lunchables and Uncrustables.
I just like eating like a schoolboy.
Yeah, just like a cheese and crackers or something.
Point is, we had a 6-minute break, and I waited till 30 seconds to scarf that down. Nobody cares. Ken Pomeroy is live in studio. All right, let's dig into tomorrow. So Utah, BYU, down in Provo. As we talked about last segment, BYU rolled up here to Salt Lake, and I give them credit for grinding out that win. I give Utah credit for throwing punches. How do you, based off what you know about these two teams, your thoughts on the game tomorrow?
I know you're a spread guy. You know what the spread is on the game tomorrow?
Let me look it up. I'll get that for you in just 1 second. I'm sure it's BYU favored by a lot.
I know what it is on my site, and it's a little scary. Yeah, the spread kind of matches my site. It's very close to 20 points.
It went up to about 18.5 before they rolled up here, and I'm like, you don't know this game. I mean, on paper, I get it. But Utah has beaten very talented BYU teams here in Salt Lake over the years.
Right. I mean, there is the old rivalry. This has got to be close. Throw the records out the window, wherever we're throwing them out. And we have the previous game, which looked like the two teams were pretty even. But that game was a surprise. I mean, kind of an outlier. Like I said, I mean, I broke down the expectation for Utah, where we're talking about moral victories here. Like if you go in there having already scared BYU once and are able to make a game of it, you have done yourself a very good job. I mean, this BYU team, for the most part, has rolled in a way, like they just look, every game you watch, they, to me, look very comfortable regardless of the score. And I realize they're coming off the loss to Texas Tech, but ignore that. Prior to that, every game they look comfortable regardless of the score. They play teams that they should, you would think, overwhelm, and sometimes they dilly-dally in the first half or the first 30 minutes, and they just slow. Like the TCU game is a great example of that, where they, never really built this huge lead, but they did start to pull away in the second half and won that game fairly comfortably. And that is the story of BYU, where I feel like there's a little bit of extra juice that they have, especially with I think just the nature of the team. They're so centered around A.J. DeBonsa. They know late in games they can go to him, maybe less so in Big 12 play. His stats have suffered in Big 12 play to some extent, but they're just going to go to him late in games, and he's so good with the ball, so good at making decisions. He's not going to force things necessarily, but he can force things, and when he does, he often gets what he wants. And so there's that issue that Utah has to figure out. And then defensively, like these two teams aren't close. Like BYU has a very capable defense, and Utah has not shown that to this point. And even in the first matchup, it was a big, offensive shootout, 73 possessions with a final of 89-84. So a lot of points scored in that one. So that's the thing. If you're going to give up 90 points to BYU, you're probably in trouble. Like maybe you can keep the game close, and that would be a great accomplishment, but chances are like you won't keep the game close, and that point spread might, pan out. BYU
18.5, according to our friends in the desert. The money line is minus 4,000, which that means BYU, there's a 97% implied win probability for BYU. Over under is 165.5. That actually feels a little bit high. But moving over, and good breakdown there as far as what you've seen from Brigham Young so far. I feel like the Rob Wright kid is kind of their engine a little bit, right? Because, AJ's awesome, but there are moments that maybe he looks like a freshman. And, Richie's great as well. But based off of some players they've had leave the program, I feel like they need Rob Wright to stay healthy as much as anybody. I mean, maybe AJ handles the ball if he gets hurt, but I've watched him a little bit at Baylor. I've been tremendously impressed. Like, it feels like when teams are gapping and blitzing AJ like Utah was to get the ball out of his hands, Rob Wright's really stepped up and kind of lifted the team.
Absolutely. Rob Wright, like way back, like 5 years ago, was a perfect college player where, he's not really in danger of declaring for the draft. He's just because of his size, he's definitely limited in terms of what he can do at the next level. But he's a very good college player. I mean, the quickness is off the charts, and he's kind of a natural playmaker. And yeah, I think for like the first 30, 35 minutes in the game, to some extent, he is their engine. Late in the game, they start, putting the ball in AJ's hands more and letting him run the offense. But yeah, Rob Wright, super fun to watch. And Richie Saunders as well. He's kind of the forgotten guy, obviously AJ takes up quite a few possessions. And I think that's to some extent, limited Richie's growth. He would have had a bigger role on this team without the presence of AJ. But obviously things have gone very well for those three guys. And then after that, this is a team that really suffers from a tremendous lack of depth and contributions offensively. And I just want to put a plug in, too, for another midseason acquisition, one of these guys who thought might have an impact, Abdullah Ahmed, who BYU brought in from the G League midseason. And he's provided some rim protection for them. I mean, he has provided some impact for them defensively, but offensively, barely a factor. Like, set some screens, but otherwise, don't touch the ball. Don't touch the ball, sir. That's kind of the instructions he has. And part of this pattern across the country, these midseason acquisitions really struggling to assimilate to their teams.
So when it comes to their Achilles heel, you referenced the depth. That's why I made the point about, look, they need AJ, Richie, and Rob Wright to stay healthy. That's their big three. They need all three of them. If Rob goes down, I do not know who handles the basketball. It might just be AJ, like I said. And then there are times I've watched them this year. I mean, look, Keba Keita is a beast of an athlete. He is an impressive athlete, but he's 6'8", right? So you referenced the Abdullah Ahmed kid who's provided some rim protection. Is size their Achilles heel, rebounding their Achilles heel? Is it depth? Like, what ultimately do you think could stand in the way of some sort of deep tournament run outside of the tournament just being the tournament?
Yeah. So first of all, the nice thing about BYU's profile, they are a rare team where they do almost everything well.
Okay.
Like, they don't necessarily do anything great.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a great shooting team. It's not a great shot blocking team. It's not a great rebounding team, but they're good at all those things, which is really rare. Even the great teams, you're going to find a weakness or just something they just don't really need to do or don't care about. But BYU does everything kind of well. So in that sense, they're pretty well rounded. I do think what gets them into trouble as we get deeper into the tournament, and it's just, the focus on DeBonsa, more sophisticated, versatile defenses are going to be able to get the ball out of his hands, and that's going to perhaps be BYU's downfall. I mean, we've seen it in conference play. DeBonsa's stats have dropped off to some extent. He still has a huge role in the offense. That has not changed, but his efficiency has dropped off substantially through the first 5 Big 12 games, and maybe that'll bounce back a little bit. But it's not like they face the most difficult schedule to start conference play. So that, to me, is probably the biggest concern.
So you have BYU at 14 right now overall, and that is the third-ranked Big 12 team. Houston at 4, Iowa State at 5, if I'm seeing this correctly.
Arizona,
excuse me, my goodness. Arizona, obviously, my bad. Arizona, then Houston, Iowa State. So BYU, your fourth-ranked Big 12 team. Is this the best conference in America this year?
Well, per my ratings, it's still the SEC. It actually goes SEC, and then Big 10 and Big 12 are basically tied for second, not that far behind. It really just, it's somewhat a perception thing. Just how do you want to define best conference? The SEC is not what it was last year. They're not going to have 14 bids. They're going to have closer to 8 or 9 bids. And the Big 10 and Big 12, certainly the Big 10 may eclipse that. But overall, top to bottom, the SEC just doesn't really have a weak bottom. So, just eyeballing here, lowest ranked SEC team, Mississippi State at 86. So, that's really what, the SEC has going for it. The bottom of the Big 12 a little bit weaker, but the top is stronger. And if you just want to judge a conference by its top, like certainly the chance of winning a national title, I would say conference-wise belongs to the Big 12, just because they do have Arizona, who right now is, I think, the number 2 favorite at most sports books, and you have Houston, who's also considered one of the favorites. Iowa State, they've been struggling a little bit lately, but still very good. And, even BYU, I think, is in that conversation. So between those 4 teams, I think you'd have to give the nod to the Big 12 as the best conference, just in terms of if you're ranking by chance of winning a title.
Yeah, because interestingly enough, your point about the SEC, who probably was the best conference a year ago, your highest-ranked team is Florida at 10, right?
Right, yeah. They just haven't had that, dominant team this year. Like, Vanderbilt looked like they might be that team, but then Vanderbilt started doing Vanderbilt things, and they've lost 3 in a row. So Vanderbilt's dropped off. Alabama has not been very strong. Auburn, with the coaching change, really dropped off this year. Arkansas under Pitino has shown some signs of life, but hasn't been terribly consistent. Kentucky, I think we're all familiar with the Mark Pope saga this year, and they've really underachieved and also just been hit heavily by injuries. So so there's really Florida's probably the team that people are going to look at, and maybe to get back to the Final Four, but there's really no obvious Final Four contender from that group.
Yeah, the Mark Pope stuff is really interesting, because, and for our listeners that may not be huge college basketball fans, if there's one college basketball fan base and ecosystem that is as crazy as the craziest college football fan bases and ecosystem, it's Big Blue Nation, it's Kentucky fans, and Mark, of course, played there, but decided to leave Brigham Young, and I wonder if he's looking back a little bit, seeing these resources that have trickled in for Kevin and all the pressure he's facing there in Lexington, and going, I wonder if this was the right move.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know that he's going to second guess himself. I think in his mind, Kentucky was always the goal, having played there. And I mean, regardless of the resources that BYU has, Kentucky's got their own resources.
It's like Witt to Michigan,
right.
Yeah.
And Kentucky, Mark Pope used those resources, and I thought he put together a pretty good roster this year, but it has not worked out at all. They should make the tournament. They have won 4 in a row in SEC play. They're 4-2 in the SEC, 13-6 overall. But struggling to stay in the top 25 in my ratings, and they're going to end up being a 6, 7, 8 seed, and may flame out in the first or second round. And Alex Jensen would sign up for that, but Mark Pope, that's I would imagine he'll be back next year for another round. But there's going to be a lot of heat on you when that happens.
Let's give a shout out to our friends up north in Logan, the Utah State Aggies, who year in and year out just do the same thing, almost regardless of who the head coach is. And culturally, it's quite a phenomenon, really, since Stu was up there, Stu Morrill, that this basketball program, with a couple of dips here or there, for the most part, is a team that you can pencil in as one of, if not the best teams in the Mountain West. It's going to win multiple games and probably go to the tournament. What do you like most about what you've seen from Utah State so far this year?
Well, yeah, we're not going to play the parlor game of where Jared Calhoun will be coaching next year.
Yeah, let's not do that. He appears to actually want to stay there, right?
I think he'd be fine staying there, but if Syracuse comes calling, I just think he'd probably end up there. Which, whatever, who cares? If you're Utah State, you're going to find somebody to replace him.
Right? Then someone else will coach the team, and they'll win 25 games. I mean, it's just wild how that happens.
Aggie fans are secure in this; they don't worry about it. But anyway, Utah State, I would say. Absolutely, fantastic season despite losing their last 2, and really just the abysmal loss to UNLV up in Logan on Tuesday night. A game that they struggled with for 30 minutes, fought back, took the lead, and then gave it all away at the end. Really a bummer, and puts them in a little bit of jeopardy in terms of winning the league, which might be kind of important to getting in that large bid. I mean, for now, everybody's saying they're safe, and they are safe based on their current resume, but a lot of tricky games down the stretch. So that will be an interesting saga to watch. But, credit to Jared Calhoun for retaining some of, the really good talent that he had on the roster in terms of Mason Falslev and Drake Allen, and then bringing in a high-level transfer in MJ Collins, who's just a terrific off-the-ball scorer for them, coming in from a really good Vanderbilt team last year. So, great roster. Love the fact that he's able to, like I said, just, maintain in this era, a decent core from last season, supplement it with high-level transfers. That's really still a rock-solid formula to win in college basketball, and it's working out pretty well for them this year.
So Arizona has not lost a game yet. They're one in the AP, one in the coaches poll, but you have Michigan as your number one team with your metrics. Help us understand why that is. What do you like most about Michigan?
Yeah, I love Michigan. They are impressive in just about every way. So, have them as the number 5 offense, the number 2 defense. Introduced a new stat this season, Spence, called average 2-point attempt distance.
Okay.
Yeah, and Michigan is number 1 defensively in forcing the longest 2-point attempts, which leads to them being number 1 in the country in 2-point percentage defense. Opponents have made just 41% from 2-point range against them over the course of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan also number 1 in 2-point percentage offense. So we talk about the 3-point shot a lot, obviously important. Michigan takes a lot of threes. But the stuff that's consistent from game to game is your 2-point percentage. And Michigan owns both of those stats, both overall across the country, but also just if you just look at Big Ten games, and they're already 8 games into the Big Ten season, they lead the conference in both 2-point percentage offense and defense just in conference play.
Huh.
So this is a team that is scary good when they're on. They're not always on. They've had some notable scares. They probably should have lost to Wake Forest early in the season. Struggled with that TCU team that the Utes have bragging rights over. So I don't know what that means. There's some sort of transitive national championship possible there, maybe. They lost to Wisconsin at home. So they've had some bad games. Almost lost to Penn State on the road, a woeful Penn State team.
Yeah.
So you just look at those 4 games and, you'd wonder why the heck they are number 1 in my ratings. But outside of that, when they win big, and they've done that against some fairly good teams. The most notable one was Gonzaga, where they, beat Gonzaga by 40 in the Players Era Festival back in November, and that really kind of propelled Michigan to the national stage. But when they're on, they're scary good, and I fascinated just watching them play down the stretch, because some of the point spreads, we're talking about the BYU point spread over Utah, but it seems like night in, night out. Michigan's favored by 15 to 20 against these Big Ten teams, and they're not always covering, but usually they're living up to a pretty dominant win.
So Arizona, as I referenced, your highest-ranked Big 12 team, you believe they're the best team in the conference? How big is the gap between Arizona and then Houston, Iowa State, your other two?
It's not huge, because Houston and Arizona and Iowa State are also very good. But, I do think Arizona is the clear number 1. I have a little philosophy that's not useful for our hot take society, but just wait until a team loses and then gauge opinion.
You don't say.
Yeah.
This is not a hot take show. You know that.
Yeah. Well, that was the deal with Michigan. Like, until they lost to Wisconsin, like, everybody was gaga over Michigan being like a generationally good team. And then they lost, and it's like, oh, they have this weakness and that weakness and blah, blah, blah. And so Arizona has not suffered a loss yet. And obviously a very impressive team, national title contender. But, they're not necessarily without weaknesses. They, however, do profile similar to Michigan in that very good offense, very good defense. The 2-point percentage is outstanding. The offense is unusual in these modern times, is that they take very few 3-point attempts. And that will be the issue when they lose a game. People will say, hey, this team doesn't have enough outside shooting. They don't have enough spacing. That is going to be a factor when they get deep into the NCAA tournament. And it will be a factor. Like, that is really tough to overcome. I mean, 27% of their attempts are from 3, which ranks 3rd lowest in the country. So that is an issue to watch. But, overall, it's a well-rounded lineup, mix of experience and some really high-level freshmen, some international guys, and then really the freak that is Toby Awaka, who is just one of the best rebounders in history. Oscar Tshiebwe-like rebounder to maybe bring it back home to people who followed Tshiebwe's numbers with the G League team here. But so Arizona's another fun team, and I do think clearly the best team in the conference.
Let's move. Oh, actually, one more here, because people have asked me this like 10 times, and I just need to hear your answer. The BYU storyline, everyone's like, hey, are they a Final Four team? I'm like, well, that's really hard to say when it comes to how this tournament is so crazy. But BYU has the unfortunate moniker of having more NCAA tournament appearances than any school that has never made a Final Four. Do you think that run could come to an end this year if things fall their way?
It could. I mean, I think this is the best chance they've had. Like, they've never really come close to the Final Four except for, Danny Ainge 1981 miracle. Certainly this is the best team I would argue the best team in history. I don't know the power rating numbers from 1981, but this is, up there with the peak Jimmer years and the potential. Obviously, there's still a lot of season to play out, but the potential is there. They wouldn't be my first choice for a Final Four. They're ultimately going to end up in the 2-3 seed line range, but obviously from that level, you can make a Final Four if you maybe get some bracketing breaks and the team just gels properly. The talent level is certainly good enough, I think, to do it.
All right, remaining few minutes here. Just a couple thoughts here on where we find ourselves with concerning the Jazz. It's tough to analyze overall because there's so many nights where they just hold players out because they are manipulating minutes for draft capital, even though they said they wouldn't. But are you seeing signs here that some, positive trends are occurring? This is year 4 of a rebuild that oftentimes has been pretty clunky. Are you seeing anything that's encouraging this year?
I mean, there's certainly been more competitive night in, night out. They have had some, high-profile wins against teams that are definitely not tanking and more like angling for NBA titles. So from that standpoint, I think it is an improvement over the last year or two, certainly. And you've seen the progress from guys like, not all the guys, but certainly Keontae George, most notably, has been a guy who's made some progress, and obviously the explosion of Yusuf Nurkic.
Calm down, Ken.
Not that he's necessarily part of the long-term future of the club, but I mean, come on, let's give it up for him.
Couple triple doubles, yeah.
Jokic-like out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not Jokic-like, but yeah, a couple of triple doubles. Once upon a time, Denver was like, who do we keep?
Yes, I know. Right? I was recalling those days this morning.
I think they made the right call, all due respect to Yusuf Nurkic. But look, bottom line is this. We'll move over to some prospect stuff because, and I agree with what they're doing. It makes it hard to cover. It makes it hard to watch night in and night out. I think the good news is this is the last year that they will tank and manipulate minutes in the name of draft capital, because you cannot lose a top 8 draft pick to the defending champs when you're rebuilding and you live in Utah. You cannot do it. So I get it. And we'll see what happens next year. If Lady Luck finally shines on the Utah Jazz during the lottery process and they get the number 1 overall pick in the draft, who is your favorite prospect you've seen so far this year?
I think right now, it's close between all the top 3 guys. So if people haven't followed the draft, there's a pretty clear top 3, I would say. You got Darren Peterson, the wing at Kansas. You got AJ DeBonsa, and you got Cam Boozer, who is the shooting big from Duke. Those are your 3. I'd probably lean DeBonsa right now, just because he's just shown the most. He's played the largest role. He's the most athletic of those 3 guys. Darren Peterson is certainly in there. If you go through the draft process, you're going to have a full understanding of Darren Peterson's health, which is really the question that's been lingering this year as he's played for Kansas. He's played more regularly lately, but he's been in and out of the lineup with various soft tissue injuries, and so. But he looks amazing as well. I'm not going to fight anyone over those 2 guys, and even Cam Boozer, you can make a case for. The issue with him is he's just more a below the rim player who's not as vertically explosive, although he moves really well and he is fairly quick on his feet and can shoot it, I think, better than either of those 2 guys. So all 3 of those guys are still, I think, in play for the number 1 spot. If anyone tells you, Darren Peterson's definitely the number 1 pick, there's a long way to go until the NBA draft, and literally there are legitimate paths for any of those guys being the number 1 pick.
Last thing, unfortunately, we're conditioned to believe that Lady Luck will not shine on the Utah Jazz because it literally never has. Now, I'd like to remind everybody that this is literally a lottery. Okay, it's not rigged. They're not keeping the number 1 pick away from Utah because Adam Silver doesn't like Mormons. So everybody calm down. Okay, it's a lottery. Dallas moves up to 1 a year ago. resets their timeline after the dumbest personnel decision in the history of the game. At what point, if the Jazz fall to which spot, do you think because there are a lot of people that believe there are 6-7 generational pieces in this draft. I have no idea. Worst case scenario, like where's the line of delineation where if the Jazz fall here, you don't think they're able to get like a legitimate difference maker?
I mean, generational is a bit strong, but anywhere in that top 8, you figure to get somebody that can make an impact. Now, it may be an Ace Bailey type situation where you're going to have to be patient and wait 2 or 3 years for that impact to be realized while you're watching, each of the top 4 guys kind of instantly come in and make a splash. And that's certainly similar this year. You got the top 3 guys. You got Caleb Wilson from North Carolina, who probably, is the consensus number 4 right now anyway. Really athletic big for Carolina. And then after that, it's more developmental guys, but, guys that are young, probably going to be young, probably going to be freshmen, and will ultimately, with some patience, make a difference on a, 3 to 4 to 5 year time frame.
Well, we shall see how it goes. Like I said, I think the Jazz are going to maintain that asset, and hopefully it turns into something special. All right, Ken, we are getting close to that time of year where people will be asked to fill out brackets while having watched zero college basketball all year long. You are the North Star. Where can people go find your work?
Yeah, please visit kenpom.com and get a whole array of numbers. You get a complete understanding of the college basketball landscape in probably under 30 minutes, I'd say. So that's my non-binding guarantee. And if you want even more numbers, you can subscribe to the site, and that's a mere $25 for 12 months, a bargain compared to various other subscription sites on the internet.
No doubt. KenPom.com, a proud subscriber over here for a number of years. I use it on my daily prep for college basketball. And Ken, I always appreciate the time, man. Be good. We'll chat soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Spence.
All right, we got 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The 5 o'clock hour of the program is next on ESPN 700. Drive at 5 time, Friday afternoon style, 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Take a big, old, deep breath. You've earned it. Happy Friday. Happy weekend to you. Showed up all week. You did the things. Even if you didn't feel like doing the things, you did the things. Good job. Friday afternoon. Weekend time. Conference Championship Sunday in pro football time. We got a little Utah BYU basketball tomorrow afternoon. So a lot going on the program today. Good to have you with us. Spence Checketts behind the mic. Porter Larson behind the glass. Producing the program today, booking the program today. We've had a lot of great guests. Jason Christ stopped by a little bit earlier. For all of you RSL fans, I would encourage you to go download that interview and listen to Jason guaranteeing 5 new signings before opening day. Just kidding. He did not. I did the best I could to try to get more information about what's coming down the pipeline. I can tell you this. Jason did verify that RSL is bringing in a central defensive midfielder to fill in for Brian Ojeda, who was traded a couple of months ago. He is a Dutch central midfielder, and I do have the correct pronunciation of his name. It is Stijn Spearings is his name. 29 years old. Jason alluded to the potential of, I'll say, 3 to 5 other players. No, excuse me, 3 to 5 total signings prior to the start of soccer season for RSL, which is a matter of weeks away. There are rumors that a 27-year-old striker who has some Bundesliga experience is going to make his journey over here to play for RSL as well. So if you missed that, check out Jason Christ. Paul Pugmire stopped by, and then an hour-long conversation with Ken Pomeroy about the landscape of college basketball in preparation for Utah and BYU tomorrow. But NFL Conference Championship, we'll preview those games coming up, kind of let you guys know where we're leaning. We'll give you our picks before we say goodnight. Patriots-Broncos coming up on Sunday at 1 o'clock on CBS. It is the Jarrett Stidham Show as Bo Nix is having surgery on a broken ankle. And the Rams and the Seahawks should be a classic football game. Those two teams played twice this year, and they split 1 game apiece. But the game the Rams lost, Week 16 in Seattle, Matt Stafford went for 450+, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Seattle's a slight favorite. They're getting 2.5 at home. The Patriots are getting 3.5 on the road. So excited for that. Now, if you're looking to get in on the action with these games, got to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks because we've got some good news. They're giving you a max discount for the Rams-Seahawks game. Now, Sam Darnold is dealing with a bit of an oblique issue, as we all know, but I think he will throw for 1 yard. Do you? Yeah, probably. So that's your max discount. Sam Darnold on the board for 1 passing yard. You combine that with 1 other correct pick, and you can win up to 2,000 times your cash. So here's the bottom line. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Sam Darnold, 1 passing yard, and you're going to win some cash. The Utah Jazz continue to play some exciting, entertaining basketball, albeit on the wrong side of the line of winning and losing. The Spurs were in town last night. Victor Wembanyama in town last night. So you got a front row seat to the future of the NBA, in my opinion. Jazz played well, though. Ace Bailey with a career high. Yusuf Nurkic throughout his career has had 1 triple-double, and now he has 3 because he's had 2 in the last couple of games. Night off for the Jazz tonight. They're going to take on the Miami Heat coming up tomorrow at the Delta Center. Busy night in NBA basketball. A lot of NBA action going on. Unfortunately, a lot of conversation today about the lack of Inside the NBA on TNT. No longer on TNT. Inside the NBA on ESPN. They've been on ESPN, I think, 4 times since Christmas or something like that is what I read. And you know, it leads to a conversation about the coverage of the NBA this year. And I want to give a shout out. If you have not watched the NBA on Amazon Prime, our guy Travis Henderson, 30 years here with the Jazz, has made his move over there. They're doing an excellent job. NBC promised Michael Jordan. That turned out to be 1 interview with Mike Tirico, I believe. So a lot of frustration as far as the coverage of pro basketball this year, at least domestically. So we'll get to some of those storylines throughout the course of the show. Phillip Rivers interviewed for the Bills head coaching job. It looks like I thought Mike McDaniel took the Chargers offensive coordinator job, but ultimately the Buffalo Bills are going to interview him as well. I suppose you would leave a job to be the head coach of a team whose quarterback is Josh Allen. Brian Daboll, who was Josh Allen's offensive coordinator, also was interviewed for the Buffalo Bills job. 5 head coaching jobs left, ultimately, is where we're at in the NFL. So we'll keep you up to date on any news that breaks. The top 100 players in college football, according to ESPN.com, were released today. Interesting list that featured Devin Dampier at 99, L.J. Martin at 69, John Henry Daly at 43, and Spencer Fano at 11. 3 Utes, 1 Cougar. Your top 5, Fernando Mendoza, Ruben Bain, David Bailey, Jacob Rodriguez, and Caleb Downs. So 2 Texas Tech players. Speaking alluded to the potential yesterday, the power brokers in college football, namely the Big Ten and the SEC, have determined and decided that we will have a 12-team CFP model once again next season. A lot of conversation about the potential of moving that to 16. But after going back and forth, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey unable to agree, and those are the guys that need to agree, commissioners of the Big Ten and the SEC. The Big Ten wanted to move towards 24 eventually. The SEC is not there yet. So the SEC's preference was 16, and Tony Petitti said, we will agree to 16 if you agree that we're going to 24 in 3 years, to which the SEC said no. The deadline was today, so they decided to table conversations. So we will have a 12-team CFP next year, which most likely means we will have 1 bid out of the Big 12, which is unfortunate for Utah and BYU. I said this earlier. If you're a Texas Tech fan, go ahead and book your hotel December the 4th in Arlington. That schedule is a cakewalk for them. So that's the latest with the world of college football on the program today. But let's catch See, UB40 does have one song. I told you. This is the song. Is there anybody out there that actually thinks of another? When you hear UB40, is there anyone out there that doesn't think this is like their only song?
This is probably at least the one you think of. But I don't know. I think you're maybe selling UB40 a little short. Should I look at what their most downloaded song is?
If you'd like. I don't really give a rip. I'm not a huge UB40 guy. Lander Barton.
It's this one.
Of course it is. Obviously it is. Lander Barton East-West Shrine Game. I feel like he's an NFL guy. I feel like he's got all the potential you want. I mean, like I said, good lineage, good stock. Some health issues last year hindered him a bit. I feel like he's like Karene. Give him a shot. He's going to make your roster.
He is absolutely an NFL potential guy. For me, like Karene is a little undersized, but he is very polished with his knowledge of the game, his tackling. With Lander, he is not undersized. He's got all of those tangibles, but he's still still got a few things to kind of polish off as far as playing NFL linebacker, which frankly his brother did as well when he made that step. The progression of the Bartons is one where they came in just like these big freak athletes, and you had to kind of turn them into linebackers. And Lander's still dealing with a little bit of that. We saw him in open field sometimes look like, just to be honest, like he'd never made a tackle before, right? There were certain times where you're like, whoa, what are you doing, dude? And if he wraps those things up, because I know he's going to test well, he's going to measure well, he's going to look the part, then yeah, he'll make a roster. But those are things that teams are definitely looking at.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Sam Brockhouse joined us live from the East-West Shrine Game. Oh, by the way, I read that Jaron Kump was going to be. Do you have any idea? Because Sam, he's not listed on the rosters. The only players listed on the rosters were Lander Barton and Dallin Bentley. But I read that Jaron Kump might end up going. Do you have any insight on that? Sam hadn't seen him, but it doesn't mean he's not there. I mean, you can't see all the kids first day, you know?
Yeah, nothing on Jaron Kump. We'll look at maybe the Senior Bowl, which I think he may have got an invite to, but yeah, it doesn't look like he's going to be at the Shrine Bowl. Of course, a few of those kind of postseason opportunities.
All right, Porter, I'm going to let you go first. Before we get out of here, we're going to give you some picks. We're going to give you our picks for the conference championship games in the NFL. Don't forget, we are your home of the NFL in this market. Biggest and best college and pro football games can be heard right here on ESPN 700. Patriots, Broncos. The Patriots are getting 3 in the hook. They are a 3.5-point favorite on the road. The Seahawks getting 2 in the hook, 2.5-point favorite at home. Where are you going? Who do you think we're going to see play in the Super Bowl?
It's tough, man. I think these are going to be two games that, like we saw last week, are going to be down to the wire, going to be one-possession games. I'm going to go with Seattle. They looked so good. But it's one where I'm really wavering back and forth on that one. On the other side, without Bo Nix, I think that's a little tall of a task for one Jarrett Stidham, a guy who hasn't played meaningful football in 3 years or more. So I'm going New England, and I think that they cover. And then the Seattle-LA game is really a pick 'em for me. I'll go Seattle with the home field advantage.
I'm going to agree that the Patriots get it done. I've got a lot of buddies that are Broncos fans, and these really, I'll be honest, the only team that I like that's left is the Rams. Not obviously very anti-Patriot, very jealous that they're back here after just a few years down as a Jets fan. And there are just so many Bronco fans around here. I've never really pulled for them. But I have a lot of friends that are Bronco fans feeling bad for them that they lose their starting quarterback when they're on the precipice of getting back to the Super Bowl. But the Patriots have had this defensive resurgence under Mike Vrabel, and Drake May has been tremendously impressive. They're going to have both those running backs, Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. They've got a ton of weapons outside as well. And Denver is awesome defensively. They're at most sacks this year of any team in pro football, but actually pro football history, they tied for the record. But I will take the Patriots on the road as much as it pains me, and I do think they cover the 3.5. And I am actually going to take the Los Angeles Rams to go up to Lumen Field in Seattle and win this game outright. I don't feel awesome about that. In the last 4 times where the number one offense in the NFL, and that would be the Rams, takes on the number one defense in the NFL, that would be the Seahawks. Last 4 times that's happened in NFL history, the defensive team has won. And Mike McDonald is every bit the defensive genius that Sean McVay is on the offensive side. I cannot wait for that game, though. I think it's going to be awesome. Pats Broncos, 1 o'clock on CBS. Rams Seahawks, 4:30 on Fox. So I will take the Patriots and the Rams to play in the Super Bowl, but I was 1-3 last week, kids, so that's for entertainment purposes only. All right, Porter, weekend time. Let's get started the right way. What comes our way on a Monday edition of the show?
On a Monday edition of The Drive, the return of our guy, Richard Smith. He's been gallivanting around for several weeks. We're going to talk some hoops, some jazz, some college basketball as well with one Smitty. Casey Evans, the former Ute, will stop by the show, and we're hoping for one Colton Swan, the new defensive coordinator at the University of Utah. He is going to join us at some point next week. We're leaving a Monday open for him in that case.
Very nice. That would be awesome. Don't forget Utah BYU hoops coming up tomorrow on the station down in Provo. That game features BYU as a 18.5-point favorite with a money line of plus 4,000, which means about 97% implication that they win. 3:30 will be tip-off. You can hear it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Special thank you today to Jason Kreis, Sam Brockhouse, Paul Pugmire, and Ken Pomeroy. If you're the sound you missed from the show today, go to the website. It is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. It's the best way to listen to the station. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 full hours, check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. It helps. Reporter, I'm Spence saying good night. Have a great weekend, everybody. You earned it. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. We'll talk to you on a